Thank you. Welcome to the Leadership Academy July 21st, 2017 session. We are live and it is so great to have everybody here. Now we're still waiting on a couple more people coming, but what's going on?
Who we got today.
Oh, isn't that nice? So,
yes, it
thank
is.
You thank you to Tanya for helping me set up in advance and everything. So thank you. And at this point, I'll just reinforce the ground rules. If you have anything that makes sound, please turn it to off or silent. You know all the rest of the rules. You get to sing. Here's the agenda for the day. Oops, I transversed the 12. It should say 21 July. And we're going to talk about resilience. I move things around on the topic, and I'd love to hear what you want next. So, and how to be a real success, including relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership.
Do you want us just to email you, or?
I'd love to hear your thoughts, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I put like a poll before of things, and one of the things that typically is popular and important is performance management, motivating teams, and nobody really voted high for that. So I want to make sure that I'm on the same page with you in terms of what you want out of this. Another thing that normally scores really high is interviewing, resume writing, and then hiring and retaining excellent employees, and that didn't. So I'm happy to drop those if they're not important to you. So, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you need, what you want, and the like. And so if anything right now is sticking in your head about what's a topic that we need to cover, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I know September, I have a work conflict that I can't come.
Okay.
That came up last week.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that that I record it and stuff. Okay. But what topic would you like? Anyone?
Dealing with board members.
Oh, okay. Well, rather than say board members, maybe dealing with difficult people.
I was going to ask about dealing with difficult people.
Dealing with difficult people?
About employees,
Okay.
bosses.
Yeah, that's a good topic. So dealing with difficult people can be more than just board members. So yeah, we'll talk about board members versus direct reports versus So okay, I like that.
How to create buy-in.
Okay, how to create buy-in on an idea.
On an idea or a project or setting goals. How do you create?
Okay, good. What else?
I've had a couple. I've had networking.
Oh yeah, networking is a good one. Yeah. What else?
I had and something similar to and we had talked about it, Raquel. But it's maybe defining your strengths. And it's not like strengths finder, but something I know that
I do a strength thing.
Like
yeah.
Similar.
Yeah. Huh. Is that something that everyone would be interested in or not?
Because you know how we focus so much on our weaknesses,
Yeah.
on things we have to
I
improve
have an
but
assessment that I use that.
Like, what are your strengths?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm XYZ.
Well, or if you don't want that as a topic, I'll just share the assessment and we can talk about our findings. If you would rather not have it as a topic.
Sure, that'd be cool.
Okay, I'll do that.
And then the other was negotiation.
Yes. Okay.
That was a biggie for me.
All right.
Because I've been told that they're like, you probably could have done, gotten a lot more.
Okay, I love that topic.
I was like, what? Tell me that now.
I have another possible topic that that I'm working on with a past Leadership Academy graduate, Vincent Edwards, and it's basically living your purpose, your passion, and your potential. If anyone has interest in that, let me know. Okay. And even maybe helping others who may not be, family members and people on your team in any way, helping them do the same. So, okay, those are great. And if you think of anything else, email me or post it to the Leadership Academy group. Okay. In a minute, we're going to have a song. So be prepared. Be prepared there for your song.
It was so good last time she did it.
I know.
I know. So I am going to make sure that we have one person viewing. So I'm assuming it's Rochester. Let's see. Okay, so you want to give us a song? That's okay. A nursery rhyme song is just fine.
Oh, we're recording it?
No, I'm not recording it. That would be me. Although you have a beautiful voice, so it
Oh
wouldn't be that.
gosh, okay, well, let me start. There was a farmer, there was a, what's it? There was a farmer on the big old thing. He was his name, O-B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O. Okay.
Okay, all right, good job. Thank you.
Okay.
You had some help there. It's all right. We got another singer who just walked in. So go ahead and grab your lunch, and we'll have a
I gotta
little.
serenade y'all.
Yeah. So
I don't know,
be
is it-
thinking of another song while we're waiting. So
I hope that's plastic.
any updates? Oh no, we just got started. So anyone have some updates they'd like to share? What happened to my water? I had to boil water. What was that about? That's how
That was about low pressure because we lost the well.
Okay, are we good now? That we don't have to?
It was rescinded Sunday morning.
Okay, because I never got like any I just knew from the news I needed to boil water.
Yeah, and so we put it out to the media.
But then I never heard,
They're
like,
not
stop
always-
boiling
they're not
water.
always great about reporting that.
Right. How's everything else going there?
Seems to be going well. I hate to jinx it. So
Good.
I'm not gonna say much.
Good. Who else? What's happening? Work, life.
I just got back from a conference in North Carolina, in Asheville. And I met a gentleman from Southwest Airlines. It was a state purchase conference, but he talked about leadership and team building, and a lot of people associate that with Southwest.
Right. Yeah, I actually use Southwest a lot in my teachings.
Right, and it was really, really good. Jason Young was his name, but it was good, and I'm not really heavy into procurement, so I was really, really pleased to meet him and got our contact and network information. So that was good. It was
Great.
No.
Oh, thank you. A postcard. Thank you. You're so sweet. You really got that. Save the stamp.
Salmon, it's all Bring on the salmon.
That's funny. Is the food okay, by the way?
It's
So,
delicious.
okay, good.
See you later.
All right. What's happening? What's happening? Come on now. It sounds like you might have something else
I
you
do
need
have
to share.
something else.
All right.
I had my second interview yesterday, and I got the position.
I told you you were going to get it. I told her she was going to get it. That is awesome. Thank you for prodding her.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why weren't you going to share that right away?
Exactly. I've been running through the door saying, hey!
Me too. I got it.
I got the job.
I knew you were going to get it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And your health, I know that's a big focus.
Health is good.
Okay, good. All right, who else?
Well, I should be licensed as a healthcare risk manager within about 3 weeks. They're getting my transcripts. I have to go through the level 2 background check, but I'm either terribly boring or I'm very law-abiding. I have no concerns about passing that. And I've kind of got a grip on some of the issues with my mother, and that's bringing some peace to my life. And life is good, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for this class. And it just makes me feel that I have a lot of people who have my back, who will step up to the plate and say, Tanya, wake up and smell the coffee.
I love it. That's great. We're so glad you're here, and I've definitely noticed a huge change and from your Facebook postings to your demeanor. It's awesome to see.
Well, thank you. I feel like I'm on a good path.
exciting.
It doesn't exciting.
I don't know. Let's see. What's happening in the past month? I'm 3/4 of the way done on my classes.
All
Yeah.
right.
That's good.
That's amazing.
I'm getting there. Let's see. I mean, other stuff. That's probably
That is so great.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 people you invited to the group, it's a closed group just for current participants.
I did it by accident.
Okay, I would say
Gabrielle.
invite them to the free lunch and learn though instead.
I
So
did it by
it's okay.
accident.
I'm not there. Nobody can get in except for us. So
I was like, Gabrielle knows that I probably did that.
that's okay. So, but invite them if they're interested in leadership. Tell them to come to my next lunch and learn, which will be August 9th.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can come too.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I've been on the road quite a bit going back and forth to Alabama. We've had quite a few issues up there, some pretty significant injuries happened up there the last
Oh
few
no.
weeks. There's a lot of quality issues, so I've been on the road quite a bit. Found out, talked quite a bit, and I missed a training session with her because of going back and forth. But good note, my wife Maria started real estate school Monday.
Oh.
Wow.
Cool.
Pretty excited, and I don't know if you know much about it, but that is a lot of material to soak in
Oh, yeah.
5 days.
Wow.
So she has been up till 11, 12 o'clock every night,
Wow.
studying, reading, and doing flashcards with her. So it's pretty exciting.
That is
That
awesome.
is-
I am.
I know you're one too.
I actually went online and took the online practice exam, and then looked, I made a 40 when I even opened the book.
Oh.
And I told her, and she got real mad.
That's funny.
That type of information should be kept to you.
I love it.
Should kept to this class.
So,
It is. It's kept to this class. So, yep. All right. Great.
Nothing much, just the gym, of course, and I'm going to, my vacation starts tomorrow, I'm going to San Francisco.
Nice.
Oh.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I need to,
Are you going with family, friends, yourself?
my dad has a conference, so I'm tagging along.
Cool.
There you go. I like it.
Have you been there before?
No.
Nice. Great.
And Amanda Bowen, I told you, she's a breath of fresh air. I talked to her for almost an hour.
Yeah. It's good.
It's amazing.
Yep. Everybody in Leadership Academy is amazing. So, and like I said, the returning leaders, they're at a whole different level. But just like us, they have setbacks, and so it's just how do you deal with the
And
setbacks?
she told me her story, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, day one in this class, her head was hung low, and she didn't think she belonged, and she told me she didn't belong. And I was like, yes, you do. You belong here. And her whole life changed in an instant. Yeah, it didn't take long at all. And she's been, uber successful since then. That's right. And not only has she been successful in her career, but her personal life, just completely everything turned around in her life. So it's amazing when you have good leadership for yourself, you're leading yourself well, and you start paying attention to everything in your life that's important to you. Your health, your family, your friends, your self-care, your career, your everything comes into alignment when you do that. So it's good. All right. Okay.
Shall I?
Yes, you shall.
Yeah, okay. Well, professional leaders that become family. This will be my last time meeting. I am relocating to Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been in Tallahassee for 9 years now, and I am ready to not close this chapter, but put my talents in other places and contribute, to other places and expand. So that's happening by the end of this month. And so a lot of transition, a lot of reflections and growth and uncomfortable growing pains, letting go and releasing and decluttering and just everything. So that's my update.
But you're going to continue to participate remotely.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
hopefully she and Rochester can carpool down for the graduation. since they're ending up in the same general area.
But I'll still be working in Tallahassee. Atlanta's only 4 hours away, so I'll be back and forth at least every other month. I can see myself doing that. Yeah. So that's my major update.
Congratulations. I filled out a recommendation for you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome.
And now we have a song before an
All right, I'm a cheat. I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I can see all the obstacles in my way. Gone all the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
All right. Good choice.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
That bass coming out, you know.
I'm just singing at Blank Club. As you know, I was out last month due to some back complications. I have sciatica, and every now and then it'll flare up, and I'll just be immobilized. But doing a whole lot better. But prior to that, I attended a conference for work down in Orlando for a couple of days. You know, always for many of you, I know around the world, you probably commit out of your paychecks to professional associations. Where at work we have the QPAC, which is Political Action Committee, committee that lobbies Congress about all the credit union needs, along with another local firm. And so I can get a little bit out of my check. And so last October, I was selected because I gave over a certain dollar amount to go to the conference.
Oh, hey.
My wife went down there and attended some sessions, did some networking, and got to see some of the latest things and trends in the industry, and brought those back to my team. And after the back injury, went into a new quarter. We had a great quarter, probably the best second quarter I've had in a couple of years I've been there. We had about almost $9 million in consumer loans, and then my partner on the indirect side, he did about the same. And so it was great.
Good deal.
Very nice.
And the family's good?
Family's good. Don't know a whole lot about it. My youngest daughter told me last night somebody encouraged her to apply for this opportunity with the James Madison Institute, and so she was selected
Hey,
to
that's
represent.
great.
Be represented.
She was?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
To be the representative of the University of West Florida. So,
Wow.
Very nice. All right. Good deal.
you?
Yeah, so let's see. I had 2 back-to-back international trips last month, so I'm just glad to be home and grounded. And, you know, travel is nice, but it zaps me. I have some ongoing health challenges. I got one diagnosis, started treatment, but it didn't solve most of the problems. And so I have a Johns Hopkins appointment on August 2nd, where hopefully I'll get some answers there. Things are going great. I got a 3-year contract with the Department of Health, which is the state never they never liked me because I'm a person show pretty much. So I've bid in the past and not really had any luck. They go with the big companies, but this is a leadership 3-year leadership monthly training. So I'll be basically doing Leadership Academy for them. So. Yeah. Thank you. And it's interesting because when I went to drop off my paperwork, they require like lots and lots of copies and even a CD copy and everything. I went in and I used to teach for them quite a bit as a sub for Tallahassee Community College. Not a sub, a subcontractor, right? And I always had good experiences. It's with medical quality assurance. But I hadn't been there in a long time, and I really didn't think anyone would remember me. So I went to drop off the stuff, and it was really, really quiet. Like really, I've never seen a state office so quiet. And I thought, this is okay. And I walked in, and there was a woman at the front counter, and she's like, yes. And I said, I'm here to drop. And I whisper back, I'm here to drop this off. It has to be stamped by 2 p.m. or something. And she's like, what? And I'm like, this is not good. So it has to be stamped by 2 p.m. She's like, oh, the lady who does that, she's not here right now. And I go, okay, because this is like 11:30 a.m. And I'm heading, to teach. And so I said, and she goes, oh wait, there she is right there. So she walks me over. And the woman starts whispering. That woman starts whispering. And I'm like, gosh, this is the quietest state office I've ever. And then she said, what is it? And I'm like, it's a bid. It has to be. She's like, oh, okay, I'll take it. And I'm like, I hate to do this because I've had ones rejected before that weren't stamped. Would you mind just stamping it right now? now, so I know. She goes, sure, what's your name? And I said, Gabrielle. She goes, I know you. Oh my gosh. And she starts raving like, you were the best trainer we've ever had. Oh my gosh. Whatever happened to you? And I'm like, and people are peering over their cubicles, like, what's happening? I was like, oh, thank you, you know. She goes, I'm going to put in a good word for you. I'm like, oh, that would be nice. But I know there's a whole, I know that doesn't really matter. But anyway, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm excited now. So, anyway, so. Yeah, other than that, you know, life is good. Life is good, and I love it. Well, I lost one of the babies last week. But the other ones have recovered. They were all very sick, and they had upper respiratory infection, which is really common with shelter pets. And so I lost one. He was 12 days old, and but the other ones now, they were all recovering, and they're doing beautifully, and they're so cute. They're really cute.
So what's the event going on tomorrow? The paint dog something?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Christmas in July was.
Oh, that. Okay, that's different though.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember, but I don't remember. I have to look in my calendar and look things up. But I'd be glad to talk to you about it after. So and going to Rotary Youth Camp on Sunday again. So it's second time in 2 weeks volunteering there, which is always fun. You know, Tanya's very involved with Rotary, and it's something where we work with kids in Quincy. And at Wallwood Scout Reservation, and I bring a team of volunteers, and we just make the kids' day. You know, it's really fun. We share the joy of scuba. This is through my nonprofit, and it's just awesome. It's life changing for them.
It is, because many of them have never been in the water before.
Yeah.
And they sort of scared, and Gabrielle just at the end, it's just opened up a whole new world for them. And these are children that have such physical challenges and other, you know, medical issues that they really cannot go to any other camp. I mean, our camp is the free overnight summer camp they can go to.
Yeah, and I had a boy 2 weeks ago who was nonverbal, completely nonverbal, and this happened last year too. We were told he's nonverbal, and you know, I was just communicating as best I could, and we tried it, and you could just tell he was loving it. And he actually said, again? And I'm like, did you just say again? Again? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's pretty awesome. So we took him again. So anyway.
I think I misspoke. I meant to say, I think I might have said a month, quart. What was volume was called volume. So, but it's still good. 8 million a quart.
I don't even know what that means. It just sounds like a lot of money.
I know I needed to walk that back because I know you live next to our CEO, close by our CEO. If I remember you told me.
Cecilia, yeah, she's right.
You might, wait a minute. Yeah, I'll take that, but no,
I'm sure he's not going to go back and report. Either way, it's good to hear things are going well.
But I think you did say.
I did? Okay, good. So make sure.
Whatever it is, it's not chump change.
All right, so we're going to talk about resilience, and I did kind of bump this forward because I thought people could really use this topic. So resilience, thriving in times of adversity. The learning objectives include, by the end of this, you should be able to define resilience, describe how stress affects lives, explain adversity, list ways to achieve resilience, and describe ways to keep inspired, especially in tough times. Now, people are stressed out in America. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes.
So many people are dealing with ridiculous amounts of stress. And these statistics brought by the Statistic Brain Research Institute, American Institute of Stress, are pretty interesting. So 77% of people surveyed said they regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress. Can you think of physical symptoms you've had that when you're stressed out?
Chest pain.
Mm-hmm.
Headaches.
Yeah.
Blood pressure shoots up.
Yeah.
I clench my jaw,
Ooh.
which is a bad thing because it doesn't even relax when I'm sleeping. It's clenched all night long.
Ooh.
So I'm seeing a dentist.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Yeah. So those are good examples. It can be even worse than that, right? Stress can have, major problems, impacts on people's physical health. 73% surveyed regularly experience psychological symptoms caused by stress. What are some examples of those that maybe you've experienced? Psychological symptoms caused by stress. I can name one for me, brain fog. Like just brain fog, just not being as laser focused as I'm normally able to be is something. What else?
Depression?
Yeah, definitely. Depression.
I get
Short temper, yeah.
Anxiety.
Okay.
I get frozen, indecision.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just
You
stop.
shut down. Yeah.
I just stop, and it takes tremendous energy to get. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
It takes tremendous energy, and I just have to power through it.
In the office, I get bullish.
Okay, you get bullish? What did you say, Trey? What did you say? So, okay, kind of similar reactions. What about you, David? What do you do?
Sweat. Sometimes I get
Okay.
short tempered, so I don't want to be bothered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any difference gender-wise? Do men handle it different than women, or is it just?
Well, there's been a lot of conflicting research through the years about different genders handling stress differently. And I always say for every study, there's an equal but opposite study.
Okay.
But I would, even just in our little group, tend to say that maybe men tend to close down a little bit more and get maybe a little more short-tempered, and women tend to maybe close down in terms of not interacting socially as much with people, but probably they tend to have symptoms that are more quiet in terms of how they deal with things. They tend to just push through. Women are natural-born caregivers. Men tend to push through, but they might not be themselves in the way they're treating other people. So, yeah. 48% of people feel stress has increased over the past 5 years. How many of you feel like stress has increased over the past 5 years?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, and in the phase of your career you're in and everything, I would certainly expect that, right? Taking care of your mother, I would certainly expect that stress has increased in the last 5 years.
But it's been good in some ways.
Yeah.
Because it is making me set boundaries.
Right.
It is making me address things that are very uncomfortable in a very positive but firm way.
Yeah. Good.
Recently, I had to tell her if she was, that she was going to have to go into a nursing home because I could not do everything she was asking me. It was amazing. That very evening, she somehow discovered she could get out of the bed by herself. She could get into the bathroom. She wasn't confused anymore that she was in Tallahassee instead of
Isn't that interesting?
It was just amazing.
So given the choice of nursing home or interesting.
So it was very interesting.
It is.
Now she still thinks there's a good Tanya and a bad Tanya. But okay, I can live with that.
She thinks you're two different people, two different
What she
Tanyas.
does, it's whenever I've told her she complained that bad Tanya told her she was going to have to go to a nursing home, and she's hoping the good Tanya will put a stop to that. So I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
It's her coping mechanism,
Right.
and that's okay. As long as I don't have to physically lift her up and change her diaper.
Yeah.
There's just some things I can't do. I'm not strong enough to carry her.
Yeah. Now, the next thing is interesting. Self-care is not a priority. And I emphasize self-care all the time, and including exercise. And, so how many of you are, when you get stressed, you tend to neglect yourself even more? Yeah. Which is the worst possible thing you can do to cope with stress. Now, Christina, I know you said no, but was there a time when you did? I know you're addicted to working out right now, which is great, but was there a time in your life when you did?
Before I was
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
probably not.
Okay.
Because I didn't care.
Right.
But stress, working out relieves my stress.
It does. It's really good for you.
something interesting that I've noticed about myself. I mean, it is my goal to exercise, and it is my goal to get off sugar. When in all of the stress and dealing with mother, I focused on getting off sugar rather than exercising. I mean, both of them were high up there in challenges for me. But you know, I'm almost completely off sugar. I mean, there's just nothing sugary in my life anymore. And so it's like I'm clearing everything away, and at some point there's going to be nothing left but this exercise that I have to do. So.
Well, hopefully you just clear stuff off now, right? Because whenever I hear people say I don't have time, it just means it's not a priority.
No, I have the time.
Yeah.
I could make the time.
Yeah.
I could get up a little earlier. Planet Fitness is open 24 hours a day. I have no excuse.
Yeah. So here you go. The next one is lack of willpower is a problem. So, you know, and that includes stress eating. How many of you besides me stress eat? When I was younger, I used to stress not eat. I was thin as a rail, okay? But now I've reversed course, and I do tend to stress eat.
It's the same thing, because there was a period in my life that I was so stressed that I quit eating.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that never would have happened to me.
Yeah.
But it was more stress than I had ever dealt with, and I just couldn't eat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sleeping too.
Sleeping,
Yeah,
right.
sleeping, yeah.
And then you end,
That's depression.
and then you end up in a cycle, right? When you can't sleep because you're stressed, it's a vicious cycle of bad that happens as a result. When you're not sleeping well, then physically you don't feel well. Mentally you're not as sharp as you normally are. You know, everything feels bigger. Yeah. So sleep is definitely really important. Okay. So we're pretty stressed. Now, adversity happens as well. Adversity is anything that makes your life more difficult, including obstacles, hardships, challenges. So, you know, sometimes it's a natural disaster. Sometimes it's a family matter. How many of you have experienced adversity in your life that you're willing to share? Okay.
Well, you know, just recently with Maria quit her job, going from 2 salaries to 1. You know, we had to give up some of the luxuries that, you know, we had both grown accustomed to.
Right.
Resetting priorities and, you know, and holding each other accountable. So that's been over a year now. And we've adjusted to it, and I ain't gonna say it ain't been easy, but now with her, she's finally getting excited about the real estate. And it's turning around. So
Good.
Pretty excited about it.
Who else?
It's been interesting being retired, because when I initially retired, I had specific plans, and then my mother's health kind of complicated that, and now I'm having to really make a concerted effort to get where I want to do and get all my little ducks in a row. But I'm doing it, although sometimes I have to step back and recharge for a couple of days and then hit the ground running. But I don't stop, but I have to be more deliberative.
Anyone else?
I mean, for me, the biggest thing's been grass killers. A couple of times I've been saying, what in the world have I got myself into? And I be wanting to hit the brakes, but family's like, nope, you started this, you got to finish this. So it's been challenging.
Yeah.
At times, I really wanted to just stop.
Right.
But I know if I stop, I might never restart again.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's interesting because I had a woman take a scuba lesson with her son. Basically, she signed her 15-year-old boy up to take a class. And on the way driving here from Perry, where they live, last month, she decided she wanted to learn scuba too. But she has a lot of fears. And we went on 2 sets of checkout dives where basically she got in her head and got scared and didn't even leave the surface. So Wednesday night, she and her son drove here. He already finished all 4 of his checkout dives. She hadn't done 1 yet. And I said, tell me about some challenging things that you've experienced in your life, some adversity that you've experienced. What's the scariest thing you've ever been through? And she said this. I said, no, I really don't think this is the scariest thing. What about child She goes, oh yeah, that was pretty bad. I said, what else? She said, the explosion at the power plant where she worked at. Okay, I'm like, okay.
Right.
All right. Now, how did you handle that? She goes, well, it was really scary and traumatic for a while, but I'm good now. I'm like, you overcame those things. This is easy. You got this. And she did. She did it. She did it, and it was like so huge to overcome her fears and getting in her head. Sometimes I think we forget the big things in our life we've overcome. Time, distance, are factors that lead us to just forget the amazing things that we're capable of doing. And that's, in my opinion, what happened with her is that she just got in her head and thought this was the biggest, scariest thing that existed in life. And so, adversity is an interesting thing. People handle it differently. But I love it when people overcome. So, how do you respond to adversity? If you think about boiling water, right? I love to cook, and you add different elements to the water. Which one are you? Are you a carrot? Do you wilt when you're in the water? Are you an egg? You get hardened? Or are you a coffee bean who gets even better from the water? So you have a choice. And it's interesting to me because so many people, when faced with adversity, will react completely differently. People who haven't experienced major adversity in their lives, little things are huge for them. They really struggle with the most basic things. And I always say that I wouldn't wish adversity on anyone, but I've had a lot of it in my life. And little things are little to me, and big things often are little to me because I've had some really, really big things. And yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is inevitable. Some people just don't have a lot of it until they're far along in their years. They've never experienced personal loss. They've never, everything has just been kind of easy. They haven't had to worry about anything.
I think that's what I'm going through right now with my mother. We were talking about relationships, and I just can't identify her. Once she was my best friend, but when I asked her what's the worst thing you've done, she said, "Oh, I got caught chewing gum in high school." I'm like, "That's it." But I don't know what her point of reference is. So now I'm becoming her adversity because there's a little rift between us. But her life has just been kind of plateaued up until now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people, honestly, people like that are kind of hard to deal with because they just think everything is such a big deal. Right.
I know.
I never knew that existed.
I know.
I just thought everybody goes to university.
Yeah, some people never really do. So.
And then there's the other ones that have had a lot of adversity, and they're now perpetual victims.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and it's not even that much adversity, quite frankly. They just kind of have this dark cloud hanging over them.
Some of them have had real adversity.
Yeah.
But perpetual victims.
Well, I know some that haven't actually had any really big thing happen, but they're just they are in the victim role, and no matter what happens, they're just so focused on this, why did this happen to me?
Or this isn't going to last. This is, something worse is just around the corner.
Yeah. Well, so how many of you took the adversity quotient assessment? Okay, good. All right. So what were your results? Let's talk about it.
I thought it was very foretelling for me that this is one of the weak spots that I had, but I didn't realize how bad it was. But some of the questions were very transparent, and I was like, wow, I never thought about that. Is it really, do you get stuck in this area if this happens in that type of situation? So it was an eye-opener when I took it.
Good.
Question number 19.
Go ahead and read it for us.
You lost something that is very important. The consequences of the situation will, And my answer was, it depends.
Mhm.
If it, quite frankly, if it's something very important, I'd probably have duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate copies of it. You know, if it's the loss of a person, I'm going to really focus on the joy and the wisdom that came from my life. You know, but it really does depend.
Mhm.
I mean, if I lose something before I can make a duplicate of it, that really can bother me a lot.
Mhm.
If I can't figure out how to get another copy, which I usually can. But it really was, my first thought was to this question was, it depends.
Mhm. Okay. What else? Did anyone have questions about the questions or have any insights?
I thought it depends on a lot of them.
Yeah, that's kind of how assessments are anyway. So you just have to
I
kind
mean,
of.
like you were overlooked for a promotion, and it doesn't say why you were overlooked, whether that was something on you or they just
Yeah.
had a favorite that they picked over you or whatever. So I would jail on a couple of them.
Either way, people who are overlooked, you know, with the term overlooked, the word itself has a negative connotation. So a lot of people who are overlooked for promotions, I deal with them all the time. Most of the time, I tell them it's their own fault. I hate to say because, no, it's true. I do a lot of teaching of how to, basically how to be part of your company's succession plan, you know. And honestly, a lot of times internal candidates, they're not trying hard enough. They're not putting enough effort into their jobs and showing that they are capable of doing more than what they're doing. Their attitude may not be a good thing. They go for a job interview and they treat it like, oh, I got this. I know the people. You know, they don't really try as hard. And an external candidate or somebody else internally may have really stepped up and you know, so I.
A lot of employees think because they're the senior person in their job and when it's time for a promotion, they were going to get it.
Right.
Regardless.
And I tell them all the time, that's not it. And I wouldn't hire somebody who didn't put forth a lot of effort, especially if I'm going to promote them into a higher level position, maybe supervisory. So, yeah, they don't like it when I say that, but it's true.
We had to work into our union contract that seniority is a tiebreaker. It's not a deciding.
Good.
Which is hard to get into.
It is. A lot of things are hard to get into union contracts. I know. I've had union employees before. Marcia, did you have something?
Well, yeah, just the fact on the flip side of that is when, you know, you could be doing all those right things, and still they have a favorite or someone
Yeah,
that
it's
they're
true.
putting in there, and I've seen it done many,
Yeah.
many times, and it's very frustrating.
Right, and I agree, but no matter why you're overlooked, it generally is not a good feeling. If you feel like you're overlooked, whether it's something you did or someone was playing a favorite, either way, it tends to not be a positive. So.
Well, you can figure out if it's something you're doing wrong, or maybe you're just not in the right place.
Yeah. So, how many of you scored the lowest on C, control? Raise your hand. Go to that page. Of the four.
Okay. Out of all of them?
Nobody? What about O, ownership? Okay.
Or the lowest?
The lowest.
Oh, the lowest.
Okay. What about R, reach? Reach, okay. And what about E, endurance? Okay, a lot of endurance. What'd you score highest on? Control?
C.
Control?
Ownership.
Ownership,
That
okay.
was C.
Okay. Interesting. And what were your total scores? Let's go around the room real quick.
124.
174.
I just finished, it was 19, 20, 19, and 18. So I'll have to divide it up.
Okay.
I didn't divide it.
Go ahead and figure it out. We'll come back to you.
168.
All right.
Oh, you have to, multiply by 2. Okay,
That
that makes
multiplies
more
by
sense.
4 and
The same thing. I was like,
She's like, oh my
oh
gosh.
my God.
124.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. That's funny.
That's really
Great
low.
leaders read instructions. David, what do you have?
146.
Okay.
132.
Okay.
152.
158.
All right. Good. So you know what you need to work on, and we'll talk a little bit more about adversity as well. So you've probably heard me share my favorite Native American proverb, "The soul would have the rainbow, had the eyes no tears." I really think that adversity helps us appreciate the rainbows in our lives. You know, I think if you've been through adversity, you tend to have gratitude about everything in your life. It just feels like there's reason to celebrate when there's not as much as adversity. So people who respond well to adversity are resilient. And the definition of resilience is the ability to return to its original state, and in my opinion, even a better state, after being stretched or bent. And in organizations, it's the ability to recover from adversity. It could be adversity from illness, depression, and other factors. So how many of you have had adversity in your organizations before? No? What kinds of things have you experienced? Those who have in your organization?
Staff.
Right. Like cuts?
Not cuts, but people move on to other
Okay,
opportunities, either
turnover.
inside the organization, turnover.
Turnover, got it.
Other departments snatch up people, or they got a foothold through my department, and then, hey, the county hasn't opened, that's my field,
Right.
that's where I'm going. You know? And when it's my outer markets, it means I got to task org and pull people from here in the Tallahassee market and put them on the road to go
Right.
there and cover. That can be difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else?
Working for the state is chronic shortages, whether it's, if you're an attorney and you need access to Westlaw, they don't give you access to anything outside the state, so you end up having to spend your own time going to the law library to do legal research, not having enough file folders.
Little things, yeah.
Each one of us had to take one day a week that we did the filing for the office because we didn't have enough support staff. All of that is
Yeah.
because the support staff can't work more than 40 hours a week, and we have to work until the job is done or did.
Yeah. How many of you have ever worked for an organization that had catastrophic things happen? Storms, there you go. That's talking about adversity, yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in Kentucky, we had 3 major events within a 12-month period.
Wow.
One of them lasted 3 years.
That must have been a really high stress year.
That was good.
Last year was pretty tough for the hurricane.
Yeah.
I know constant answers. And I have emergency management.
Right.
So it's all,
Yeah.
I tell you, that call center for emergency management, that's an interesting place to be.
Yeah, it is. So let's talk about resilient people. What makes people resilient? Generally, they tend to be pretty positive. So when faced with adversity, they overcome it quickly because they keep a positive attitude about it. Okay, this is a challenge. I will overcome it. They're focused. They're flexible. So it's good to have a plan to overcome adversity, but if you get too rigid in your planning, it's not a good thing. They're organized. They're proactive. Often they sense that things may happen, and they're prepared for those things. Speaking of storms, I grew up in the military, so I always was taught to be prepared, like completely prepared. So when the hurricane came in September and the power went out, first off, I love my neighbors. Everybody just came out at 5 o'clock in the morning. I heard a chainsaw going, and a guy who works for Leon County was out there at 5 o'clock in the morning cutting a path because we had trees that were blocking our cul-de-sac, so we couldn't get out. And everybody just came outside and just started talking to each other, and is everyone okay? And we're pretty sure we had a tornado come through our street, which was way worse than the hurricane. But we had no power for a while. I had no power here either. And so I went to this one lady's house who has a gas grill, and she said, why don't I host? And I said, great, I've got enough food to feed the street. And I really did. I really, really did. I keep things in the freezer, and and literally I fed the street. And, and it was so nice, It's like, okay, let's just brush ourselves off, and, we're probably going to be without power for a while, and let's just try to make the most of it. I heard a lot of people, unfortunately, complaining, but they don't know what it's like if you've ever been through a long term, no power,
We were out for 4 days.
Yeah.
We had people complaining.
Within an hour.
Constantly complaining.
Yeah.
Friday morning.
Yeah, I know.
I remember going to Publix the next day of the hurricane.
Yeah.
And you could just feel the panic in
Yeah.
the air. You could just feel the panic. It was
Well,
stressed.
I was out of town, but I came back during that. My house was passive and active solar, so I had some electricity. But I figured water would be short, so while I was in Orlando, I just packed up my car with a ton of water and came up here. And I would drive around, and I'd see the repair, the linemen and stuff like that, and they'd give them water.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
donut, just because they weren't stopping for lunch.
Right.
They weren't,
Well, I came in the office here, and of course, there's always stuff in the fridge and freezer. So I had a whole bunch of ice cream. So I took the ice cream, like ice cream sandwiches and stuff, and I saw people that were looking stressed at the gas station and stuff. Want some ice cream? They're like, really? Thank you, because it was hot too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know about you, but I've lived through a lot longer than the thing we went through, and I was pleasantly surprised that my Talquin electric came back on so fast. But because I live kind of in a rural area where we kind of expected to hunker down for a long time. But anyway, so being proactive even in terms of that, a lot of people are complacent when it comes to storms. They don't prepare. They don't have batteries. They don't have flashlights. They're just like we haven't had a hurricane in how many years.
That's what everyone says. Oh, it's gonna pass right by. And then last year when everything happened, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
it really didn't start
Well,
looking
the
right.
feedback from the post-storm meetings seemed to be mostly, what are y'all gonna, talking to the governor,
Yeah.
what are y'all gonna do better next time to
Yeah.
take care of us?
Yeah. Well, and
Because
seeing that,
he
I'm
said-
sorry, that ticks me off because I was always taught you need to take care
You're
of
supposed
yourself.
to be prepared.
I know, especially people, I hate to say this, with medical needs and things. If you know a storm is coming, have a plan. There were shelters in place. There were, and to not make arrangements or have backup power.
Now with my mother, I know which emergency shelters, would be prepared for somebody with health issues.
Yeah, that's good.
We probably wouldn't stay at home.
Right.
We'd probably go there just because I need to have access.
Mm.
But you have to think about these things. You have to
Mm-hmm.
Hardly anybody
Yeah.
did anything before the storm, everybody waited till afterwards.
I did.
Yeah, rehearse.
And I had a generator, but I didn't need it. Like, I'm used to, I've been without electricity. I was poor. I was without electricity for months at a time. So I was like, I knew somebody in need, and so I gave them my generator, And so, I mean, I was okay without it.
I'm always so prepared that my first thought if a hurricane is coming is that I need to get to Barnes & Nobles and try and
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. All right, other characteristics of resilient people, they're very self-aware.
I think that sometimes they become more knowledgeable, particularly if it's something that they have to retake,
Mm-hmm.
like classes.
Mm-hmm.
You ever have to take a class and you got to elevate your grades, you become a little bit more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
More of an expert at whatever it is.
Right.
You're doing.
Good. They're accepting. Some people are just like, you got to be kidding me. All right, this is what's happened, and we're going to deal with it. They're reflective, What if the adversity was something that maybe you caused or you were part of causing, maybe reflecting on how you reacted to it, what you could have done differently.
Or even if it's something that someone else caused.
Yeah.
At that point, it doesn't do any good telling them you screwed up.
Yeah, you can't. I told
what
you
I have
so.
to do is reflect on now I know this about this one, how can I prepare around them? How can I be better prepared for other people's unpreparedness?
Good.
You know, one of the most difficult things I seem to have trouble with employees is when there is something that happens, trying to focus on getting it resolved before people start blaming each other.
I know.
It's very hard to get them to do that.
Well, and resilient people don't blame. They just go, okay, you know,
Let's get it
we're
done.
gonna deal with it. We're gonna deal with it.
Well, and that's always when they start going down that path, and
Right.
the first thing I say is, it doesn't matter who
It
did
doesn't
what.
matter.
Let's get this resolved.
Yeah.
Go back and look at it.
Right.
Yeah, let's focus on the issue, not the community.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to me, it's frustrating when people are pointing the finger at other people, or worse, throwing them under the bus. You
It's
know,
not very productive.
no, there's no good that can come of that. Speaking of no good that can come of anything, incomparable. When people compare themselves to other people all the time, and resilient people don't do that. So when you compare yourself to other people, one of two things happens, and neither one is good. One, you think that you're inferior, that you don't measure up in some way, and the second one is worse, you think you're superior.
I think that the people that are resilient, and I feel that, you don't have time to compare yourself because you're so focused on doing on whatever it is. That comparison is just not even on the radar.
What I try to do is compare myself to what I know I can do.
That's
I
good.
say, how much closer, and sometimes I give myself a pass. You know, sometimes I say, yeah, you were capable of doing that. However, these things are going on, and you're going to cut yourself some slack this time. But that's your goal, and that's where you're generally going to be.
Good. That's good. I think it's good to compare yourself to yourself. It's like when I was doing a lot of competitive triathlons and running and cycling and stuff. I never cared that somebody else beat me. I just wanted to beat my own time from the year before, or the race before, or whatever. So, and yeah.
I guess it falls in the same category as comparison. I would grade myself as well. Like, okay, out of all the things you know you're supposed to be doing, overall, what do you give yourself today? You know, maybe a 60 or 70, you slacked off here, but you put a lot of focus in these areas. So, give yourself a pat on the back, that cutting yourself some slack.
Good. Well, I would expect that the teacher would grade yourself. I actually thought you were going to say B- or something. I was happy to hear it was numbers instead of letters. So, that's funny. And the final thing that I think is an important characteristic of resilient people is their team focus. They know that they can't overcome adversity just by themselves. They need to enlist others on their team. Through adversity, you learn who your true friends are. People show themselves to you. People that you thought were good friends suddenly disappear. I've learned the hard way about that. And then people who really didn't seem that close suddenly step up and come into your life in a different way when adversity happens. I know after 9/11, I was shocked how many people just couldn't deal with my grief and what I went through, and I literally lost like half of my friends. But I don't consider them true friends. The ones who were there beforehand that are still there now are the true friends. So adversity brings out the best and the worst of people. So especially when somebody is going through it, it's like you just have clarity about who you can count on and who is on your team, who should be on your team.
From my car accident, that's what I learned. When I literally was broken, physically broken, that's when I learned. I called up Amber one day and she brought me over lunch. She was so worried that I wouldn't have dinner that, she brought me dinner too. We didn't have that type of friendship. I didn't think.
Yeah, there you go. And Amber's the Year 1 Leadership Academy Leader of the Year, and she's amazing. And she's been through so much adversity herself, but she keeps this very positive spirit about her, and she's awesome. She'll
That's what
always
I was
find
going to say is that people who've gone through adversity seem to be compassionate because
Yeah.
they remember how they got over or who helped them in their time of need, and then they play it back, and then they have that compassion.
You know, even people I don't particularly care for, there have been times I've stepped up to the plate with real adverse circumstances, and they're not really people I care for, but now they seem to think we're really close friends. You know, and I would never do anything to harm them, but it was, you know, if somebody needs your help,
Yeah.
suck it up and you go. Petty things don't count.
Yeah.
They just don't count.
Well, and one thing that a lot of people deal with is health issues, right? That can often be a big form of adversity. And so I like life is 10% of what happens to me, and 90% of how I react to it. This is part of a big quote that I love, and it really is, because two people faced with the same thing will respond in very different ways. One is productive and one is not. So, how many of you have heard of Randy Pausch?
Yes.
I love him. Okay. So he was asked to teach a lecture called The Last Lecture. And it wasn't because he was dying that they asked him to teach this, because this was something that happened regularly at this university, where they had the last lecture. And the premise of it is, if you only could give one last lecture, what would you say to your students? And so he was dying of pancreatic cancer when he was asked to give the last lecture. And if you ever need some inspiration, a little dose of emotional intelligence, of resilience, then you need to watch his lecture. And I'm going to play a little bit of it right now. But he said, "We cannot change the cards we're dealt, just how we play the hand." And I absolutely love, and I'll put a link to the entire lecture on your portal. But let me go ahead and switch sources here. Whoops. Okay. That's the Leadership Academy. Do you see it? Yeah.
Can I share what I would say if
Yeah.
I had to give a life
Yeah.
lesson?
Absolutely.
I would say give it your all. That's what came to mind when I thought about that one. What would I tell myself, or what would I tell my students? Give it your all.
That's great. I just had it there. All right, we'll go to this
For
one.
me, I'd probably say scratch your dog's belly one more time.
Aw.
Yeah.
They love that.
There you go.
There it is. All right. I had it queued up and everything. I don't know what happened. Okay. Give me just a minute here. 1:30. Here it is. 101. That's so strange because I literally had it queued up. 101, 30. Okay, good enough.
Please tell them about how it's that's what I remember you for. I said, I can do that. Yeah, talking about the importance of love. And I don't know how to not have fun. I'm dying. And I'm going to keep having fun every day. It's really so my advice is, you just have to decide if you're a Tigger or you're a Eeyore. I think I'm clear where I stand on the great Tigger Eeyore debate. Never look at the childlike wonder. It's just doing the work. It's what God does. Help others. Danny Prophet knows more about helping other people. He's forgotten more than all of us. He's often giving up.
I'm just going to stop it there. That's just a little taste of his lecture that I just think is profound. He did end up dying of pancreatic cancer, but he lived such a good life, and he lived it with joy. And the whole message, really, at the end, was that this lecture was really for his family. And so everybody loved it, and everyone was laughing throughout, but ultimately it was for his family. And it was really special. So. All right, 10 ways to build resilience. One is make connections. People with good relationships with other people, we'll get into relationships later, that's part of real success, tend to be able to handle adversity in a lot better way. So I don't know about you, but there are certain family members that are less like family to me than friends, you know. And sometimes people disappoint me, but the ones I know I can count on, I can count on. But make connections, and make new connections too, because you need those connections to help you through adversity. And never be afraid, ever, to ask for help. Avoid seeing crises as insurmountable problems. Again, people who have never experienced adversity tend to think that little things are mountains. You know, they're huge things to overcome. Accept that change is part of living. Change happens. Change is uncomfortable. You know, but change is necessary. So here's some good quotes. Be the change you want to see in the world, Gandhi. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And change is inevitable, except from a vending machine. So people who go through change, especially in an organization, they have a lot of things that happen to them. Right up front, there's anxiety about any kind of change. Can I cope? Some get happy at this point. At least something's going to change. Others are fearful. What's this going to do to me? How's it going to impact me? Some people look at it as a threat. Some people go into denial. Change? What change? Okay. Guilt. Did I really do that? Depression. Who am I? Disillusionment. I'm out of here. Disillusionment. Hostility. Yeah. And then on the other hand, people often gradually accept change and realize that it can be good for them. How many of you in organizations have seen every spectrum of human change management? Yeah. And what kinds of people do you want to have on your team when, yeah. How many of you have had to deal with the people who become hostile or, yeah, that is not fun.
And I think the trick is to keep moving. You might get in one of those pockets, but to push through to the next one.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I experienced some of that when we went from individual filing system to a central filing system. And so every time I had to do with the central filing system, I would just have some tea and go out and then come back in my office. And it turned out to be a better system.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, in that in-between time, you just don't let it spill over to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Good. Move toward your goals is another way to build resilience. So Rochester just responded. Let's see what he's saying. He just responded to the Facebook posting, and I'll have it handy here. Anyone online? Okay. Hang on, Rochester. So, okay, good. He says he's online and he loves the concept of the last lecture. Yay, Rochester, good to hear from you. Excellent. So you want to move toward your goals. And have we done smarter goal setting in here? Yeah. So you need to always have new goals, regardless of what it is. Take decisive actions. Sometimes when we are facing adversity, we get stuck. And it is harder to make decisions.
I give myself a time limit to be indecisive. or my pity party.
Okay.
I say, okay, this is how you feel, and this, yeah, it's unfair, blah, 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 blah. Okay, your 10 minutes are up.
Yeah, that's good. Suck it up. Okay, good.
Suck it up and move on.
By the way, this is Carolyn from our returning leader class. And this is Vincent I mentioned earlier. Look for opportunities for self-discovery. You know, so often we have so many things going on in our lives and our work, and we're just going. Every minute of our day is filled. And taking time to reflect and have self-discovery is an important thing. Nurture a positive view of yourself. I'm picturing Tanya in her red glasses. So
I made that happen.
That's adorable. Mm-hmm. I Facebook stalked some of you. So. Yeah, but you know, truly, people get down on themselves all the time. We're our own worst enemies, and that does not help you be resilient.
I like that.
That's great. Keep things in perspective. I mentioned earlier the student who thought that scuba was the scariest thing in her life, and then it turns out she had some much bigger things that had happened. Perspective is key. Maintain a hopeful outlook. It's a fact that people who are optimistic are better able to cope with adversity, including healing. There's a good amount of research on healing hospital patients and who are optimistic versus those who are not. And it's amazing how having hope will help heal, regardless of what it is. So visualize what you want.
And laughter.
I agree. Laughter is...
If I get down, I watch cute goat videos.
Okay.
Goats climbing trees.
Hey, to each his own.
You can't watch these things.
And you can the yoga with goats.
Oh my gosh, there's more than one goat person.
I know.
Personally, I would never do that.
Sure,
But there's this new work exercise that you actually go somewhere and work out with baby goats.
Oh, wow.
Where you do the yoga and they come and stand on your mat or...
Yes, the goat yoga.
Wow.
I saw that.
Oh my goodness. So I've seen it with cats and dogs, but never with goats. Now we know. Next one. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Nurture yourself. That includes exercise, spirituality, family, health, diet, all kinds of things you need to do to take care of yourself. Because when you're not taking care of yourself, you definitely can't respond.
Take care of everyone else.
Right. And have fun.
You did.
I did. Okay. Have fun. Laugh. Okay. Do goofy things with your family. Have fun. Truly, laughing at goats is a much better response than doing nothing. And I love this picture. So you look happy, Hey, when people are happy, it's easier to respond to any kind of adversity. So. And when stress, I know, when stress happens, offset it with people and activities that bring you joy. Isn't that adorable?
It is.
And and even just looking at a picture of a fond memory is a great way to help with resilience. Have that picture. If it's in your workplace, have a picture in your workplace and just look at it and think, this is what's really important to me. So I love the picture of Trey sleeping. So
He's
cute.
keeping me up all night. Double ear infection. That was 1 hour in my recliner that he actually slept.
Oh man, that's so cute. And then Marcia, that's beautiful. And the FSU football game, right? I'm guessing. Well, you haven't updated in a long time, so I know. I was looking for more current, but there wasn't really a lot there. So, all right. Now, when you're dealing with adversity, breathing is really important. Have we practiced this together before? Tracy?
I'm sure we have. I'm just
Okay.
looking at the force of it.
So we'll just do it right now, just again. So what you're going to do, and you don't have to make the whooshing sounds, but this is Dr. Andrew Weil, and I prescribe this to a lot of my coaching clients, and it works really, really well. So it's 4-7-8 method of breathing. The first couple times you do it, you may become a little lightheaded because you're breathing out more than you're breathing in. So what I want you to do is we're going to do 2 cycles of it, but at home or anywhere where else you're feeling stress, you're going to do 4 cycles of it. We're just going to do 2. So everybody right now, inhale for a count of 4, and then we're going to hold for 7 and release for 8. Here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Feel better? Yeah, it helps reduce blood pressure, and it really is a powerful thing. So. All right, any thoughts? We need to take a little break. Anyone need a break? Yeah? No? Yes? No? Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Why make a whooshing sound?
It's his method. That's why I say I don't make a whooshing sound. I don't know. I don't feel it's necessary to make the whooshing sound. But this is the correct method. I just choose to modify the method because I'm not into the whoosh.
For some people, it might help them focus.
Maybe, yeah. I'm good without making the whooshing sound. I can still focus. So, all right, we are going to shift gears into one of my favorite John Maxwell books. Real Success is the next topic. So, real leadership. And it includes relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. So for this part, the learning objectives are discuss what success means to you. Explain how effective relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership skills benefit individuals and organizations, and determine an action plan for continued success. So what is success? What is it? What's it mean to you?
Accomplishing specific goals I set out
Okay.
to accomplish.
All right. Good.
Fulfillment, freedom, and fun.
Ooh, I like that. That is nice. Yeah. What success mean to you?
Accomplishments.
Okay.
Happiness and balance.
Nice. Marcia?
Yeah, I think I'm Greco.
Okay.
Freedom.
All right. Tanya?
Contentment. When I look around and I go, yeah.
Good.
Being happy with who you are.
Difference. Did my presence make a difference? Did I make a difference in someone's life today? Difference.
Nice. Very nice. I like that. So, so what does success mean to you is a good question to ask yourself. And if you're anything like me, your definition has changed through the years. So when you were younger, you probably had a different opinion of what success was when you were younger. It might have been focused on your career or some other aspect. Just had an internet blip there. What would you need to occur for you to consider yourself to be successful? Discipline. I love that. Oh, it's so interesting because I had a coaching client. I had a coaching client last week, and he was struggling with some things. And in my opinion, discipline was what was lacking in his, even tackling his action plan items. And so I said, discipline is a great way to find focus and be successful. And he started becoming disciplined, and it helps because the 2 prior sessions he would agree to things and he wouldn't follow through with them. So yeah, discipline is good. What would you need to occur? Anyone else have things?
Making your list.
Okay.
And sticking to it.
Okay. Good. How many of you have modified your smarter goal or have a new goal? What's the last major goal you achieved too? Yeah, kind of.
My last major goal was the healthcare risk manager, because I had two. I had two, and now I guess, I don't know, sugar and exercise. I think I really need to put some discipline and structure into the sugar and exercise. The sugar I seem to be making really great headway on. And the exercise, that has been just me not getting out and doing it. Although I am taking Mickey for walks every time my mom gets me upset.
It's good. So Mickey's in really good shape now.
It's like carrying weights, because Mickey is 14 and gets tired. And only weighs 9.5 pounds, so I just pick him up, put him on my couch, and we go on.
Nice. That's good. That's funny. How about the smarter goals you all developed in February earlier this year? How have you done toward accomplishing your smarter goals? Great.
17 pounds.
Yeah, 17 pounds.
It's awesome. Got my bathroom completely redone. I mean, this is awesome.
That is wonderful. David, are you experiencing stress or anything? I know, but he's giving him special attention right now. So.
Must be that chair.
Is that what you said again?
Anyone else? Trey, that's awesome that you've accomplished so much, especially I think the relationship with your brother. That's so.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Relationships.
Yeah.
And how is your sister doing?
Good. She's recovering. She's finally out of the hospital, just dealing with that dehydration and trying to heal from all the blood bites she got. She's hanging in. She's doing well.
Wow.
You know, it wasn't a stated goal, but one of my goals really was to feel happier and to just bring up the level of my life.
Doing it.
And it is, and I'm on the path, and I feel I've surrounded myself with people who are going to help me with this and keep me accountable, and you know,
Yeah.
I just feel better.
Yeah.
Things are more achievable. Things are not. It's just a matter of getting ducks in a row, and sometimes it's like herding cats. But I'm going to get those ducks in a row.
Good. Anyone else? Who doesn't remember their goals?
Yeah, I'm trying to look back.
Yeah, look back in your notes.
I know one of them was reading books, and one of them was getting employment.
Yeah. How's
Yeah.
the book writing going? I recall that was part of your goal.
Yeah.
That was one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's good.
Thanks, Trey.
I'm sorry.
No, that's actually going well, because I know I'm going to use a compilation of my journal entries, so I've been writing a lot more, and, just speaking of this transition and reflecting, and so that has been going well. It's still scattered, but now I have content to go from, and, to edit and kind of manicure it the way it should be.
Good.
Purging myself of bad toxic relationships. That was huge for me.
Yeah.
And it has freed me up for so many things that I've been holding back and wanting to do. But that was really, really good.
And I don't even think you realized how toxic it was. And a lot of times I say this, people stay stuck because it's comfortable.
We're hoping to never apply for that position.
It's true. Yeah. A
Yeah.
lot of things. Yeah. So.
Kind of like the new hairstyle.
You look fabulous.
All together.
Yeah, you look great.
I reconnected with some old friends.
Good.
Talk about, so maybe going to visit them. Not this year, but next year. So I'm living up in the Northeast. So that was great.
Wonderful. Good.
I have another one. I gave myself the gift of forgiveness
Mhm.
towards my dad.
Oh, wow.
That was major.
That is major.
So yeah, that was my goal.
That's great. It's got to feel like a huge burden to lift it.
And I can see my progress from that picture. I looked
Yeah.
at that, I was like, holy cow.
Yes, you did. I really am.
I was like, oh. You don't realize it until it gets put in your face.
Yeah.
So in 4 months, and I just got a new trainer last month, and he's kicking my behind, pushed me to new levels that I never thought I would. Doing deadlifts like over 100 pounds, like piece of cake. I'm like, ooh, you must be on something.
But you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I know you're addicted to it now. So
Yeah.
it's
I actually work out 5 times a week. I do boot camp twice a week, and my personal training 3 times a week.
that's excellent.
And I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
So, like, for my trip next week, I really have my nutritionist / trainers send me workouts to do at the gym in the hotel.
That's great. Yeah, I can't really work out right now in the way that I'm used to. I tried to get back on the bike on Sunday, and I'm still really weak. Something's happening medically with me, and it's so frustrating because when you're addicted to it and you can't do it, that's the worst. So I literally made it like 5 minutes, and then I had like a slow speed fall, and I got up and I had another slow speed fall, and then I started getting like tremors, and I said, well, yeah, call that a day. I'll just do what I can, which seems to be scuba is the only thing that I can do right now that doesn't, cause weird symptoms to happen. So I'm just gonna keep diving as much as I can until they figure out what's wrong. So, all right. So I like this quote. Success is doing what you want, when you want, where you want, with whom you want, as much as you want. That's Tony Robbins' definition of success. What's that?
So that's mine too.
It's a pretty good definition. And so don't forget to set your goals, because a lot of us have dreams, but you need to have smarter goals. Have I covered this already? Tell me if I have. Did we talk about Locke's goal setting theory? Okay. So goals need to take into account the extent to which you have clarity. So when you have a goal that's very clear and specific, then you're much more likely to achieve it because there's less misunderstanding about expected behaviors. Challenge. It needs to be challenging. A goal that's not really a challenge is not something that you're going to feel great about accomplishing. Commitment. You need to be committed to your goals in order for them to be achieved. Feedback. You should not be so rigid in your goals that you're not willing to make some adjustments. So, because goals are great, but every now and then we need to be receptive to the feedback we're getting from, including maybe the goal difficulty, and make some adjustments. And then task complexity. For more complex goals, it's important to ensure that the tasks associated with those goals don't become so overwhelming. So a really great thing to do with a big goal is break it down into smaller pieces. And then ask yourself these questions. Why is your goal important to you? And if you were to share it with other people, how would you convince them that your goal is worthwhile? So what's your latest goal? Anyone have a new goal? Go ahead, Tanya.
Well, my goal is to get a job. And either in a nonprofit area where I'll be making a difference, or as a healthcare risk manager in a very specific place that I want to be.
Oh. Your elbow is really loud.
You can make music with that elbow.
That is one loud elbow there, David. Okay.
But, and one would be personally fulfilling, and the other would be fulfilling too, but it would allow me to have more money to donate to the charities that I like donating to. I get a lot of fulfillment from being able to write a check, not huge checks, but be able to write a check to like the Boys and Girls Club and Rotary Youth Camp and Legal Services and things like that, being part of their mission, helping them. And, you know, I reach more people than I'd ever reach by providing the service myself or trying to do it. And I love the fact with Boys and Girls Club that I'm helping children that are like my nephews, but I'd never have any impact otherwise. And these are great kids. These are great kids.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good.
yeah, and either one of those things, either with the nonprofit or with the other, either one of those things would make me very, very happy. Well, I'm happy already, but I mean,
Yeah. Fulfilled to a higher level even.
it would put a little more
pep in your
my
step. Yeah, that's great. What's your new goal? Anyone else? Got a new goal?
And my goal is not to let my mother interfere.
Okay.
To
Well,
make
you
sure.
it sounds like you got a pretty good handle on that. The way you whipped her into shape there.
So,
Anyone else have new goals?
A new goal would be to take my consulting to, or off the ground, not even to the next level because it's at ground zero right now.
Yeah.
But off the ground, since I've spoken with you, I had another opportunity come my way, and actually with another one of my mentors, and she's like, hey, what was your degree in again? And I was telling her all about it, and she's like, I think I can use you, you know, and matter of fact, you know, you should make a business and an LLC and da. And I was like, yeah, I think I should, you know. So really being able to take myself seriously, my graduate work, and develop myself or position myself in a professional manner in the business consulting world. I think so. It's broad. I don't want to try to narrow it down. Would be a new goal of mine.
Good. You and Sonia should probably talk.
Yeah,
Because she was at ground zero a few months ago, and now it's taken off. So
we will talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because I was just at this conference, and like I said, it was for state purchasing, which is procurement. But when Jason Young got up to do his presentation, the guy from Southwest, he was talking about all these models, and I said, oh, that's Kim Blanchard. I know what that is. And I was being able to identify. But as a spin-off of that, I was like, I could see Sonia standing where Jason is right now and giving, lectures and providing that type of thing. So definitely the consulting work, getting that up on two legs.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Good. All right. So make sure that your goals motivate you, that they're smarter. When you write them down, you're much more likely to accomplish them. So don't just have them in your head. Share your goals with other people. Again, studies show that sharing with other people, especially people you trust and love, who are going to hold you accountable, will make it more likely to achieve. Make an action plan and stick with it, and always take time to celebrate when you've accomplished your goal. Success, according to John Maxwell, real success is relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. So with relationships, think about, even in this Leadership Academy, how many of you have been working on relationships and how profoundly that's changed some of your lives. You need to relate better to other people. If you have relationships that are in need of repair, then either repair them or let them go. But being in limbo is the worst possible thing you can do with a relationship. And a lot of times people have really big, seemingly big problems in relationships that they just haven't effectively dealt with. Having those difficult conversations often will help you get through it, and a whole new world can open up. Add value to other people to help them reach their potential too. Equipping. So you want to recognize leadership potential in people around you and use teamwork to help them get you to a higher level, but also you get them to a higher level. Often I see in organizations that people don't want to equip their people adequately, and they don't want to.
And they don't want to equip them for that next step.
Because they're afraid they're going to leave the organization, or in some cases with supervisors, they're afraid that the person is already better equipped than they are.
Yeah.
And so they deny them opportunities for training and other. I see it all the time. It's really sad.
That's such a level of insecurity.
It is complete insecurity when people do that. Great leaders always want to build other people up. And I like equip rather than empower, because I think equip means you're giving them the tools and resources to be successful.
And you never know, in the long run, it may benefit you. If somebody used to work for you and they just thought you were wonderful, and you have equipped them to do something else, now you may want to go over there and go, oh yeah, let's snag this person.
Well, and that happened to me when I was a teenager. I worked at the FAMU FSU College of Engineering, and I had this wonderful supervisor named Lydia, and she was like a mentor to me. She was fantastic. And we kind of kept in touch, and then we lost touch, and I moved to New York, and we connected in New York because it turns out she was in New York too. And so we got together a couple times when I lived in New York, and then I came back to Tallahassee. And when I got here, I started working on a $6 million project where I had to do a lot of hiring. And coincidentally, I had like 6 positions advertised at the time for instructional designers. And she emailed me and said, I think I want to move back to Tallahassee to watch my grandchildren grow up. Do you know of anything open? I'm like, actually, it'd be perfect. I have 6 positions open right now that you fit the bill for. Why don't you apply and interview? And she did, and she ended up working for me. And when you have a kind of leadership mentality, it's not really working for somebody; it's working with somebody. And her supervisor at the College of Engineering ran into us at one point and just said, I don't know how you guys are doing that. I mean, that just blows my mind. Like, she was your boss and now you're her boss. And we're like, it's fine. We really don't think anything of it. We're just, we're working together and we work together great, and it doesn't matter who's boss. It's that we're on a team and we're working together on a really important project. And so anyway, you never know. You never know. Attitude. Improve your attitude daily, and know that attitude is contagious. And quite frankly, if you have people around you with a negative attitude, hopefully you can either, if you have any influence on them, encourage them to change their ways or cut them free from your life, because people with bad attitudes can be highly toxic.
And contagious.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to encourage yourself, because not everybody might be excited about your dream, about your change, about your motivation. You have to encourage yourself sometimes with your own attitude.
Yeah. And when you have a really positive attitude, it definitely helps you overcome adversity. And the final part of success is leadership. Lead others to where you have gone and beyond successfully, and influence others from the heart and not just the head. When I work with people and they end up being what I would say more successful than I am, at one point I was mentoring them, and now they're, sky's the limit. I love it. I love it when they're doing great things. So leadership is just positively influencing other people.
But I think really great leaders always remember who helped them get there. And when they have the opportunity to show appreciation or to get a little boost, I think it's a sign of a great leader who does that.
Good.
And I've seen that happen.
Yeah. I never forget when people have lifted me up, And I also never forget great people that I've worked with, maybe that weren't even on my team, but I was like, that is the person with a positive attitude and, and skills to boot. And if I ever have an opportunity to hire somebody, I'll give you an example. I met several people like that through the years, but I never forget them. And I had an IT person. It's hard to find really, really good IT people who have great attitudes and personalities to boot, that will talk to people with respect regardless of their technological abilities. And so I especially have paid attention to the IT people that I've worked with through the years who are those kind of people who are just exceptional. And I've hired them, I've reached back out on this project that I had. I needed a good IT person, and I reached back out to somebody in state government who fit the bill and stole him away from a state government job, and so it is an important thing to do. So success is knowing your purpose in life, growing to your maximum potential, and then sowing seeds that benefit other people. Success really is relationships. Studies have shown that the average executive spends 3/4 of a working day dealing with people. Yeah, I know. The average one, so there may be some more hands-off. But people knowledge is key.
That reminds me of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, that's a good one.
Is it a good book?
It is a good book. Right. So relationships are, I think, critical. If you can't get along well with other people, if you can't have those difficult conversations when things go wrong, if you can't make things right, then you're going to have a serious struggle. So go ahead and take the relationships inventory, and we're going to take a break too. So because teacher needs a break. So take the relationships inventory, and we will take a break and come back. Take the relationships. All right, let's talk about the relationships inventory. Did you think you did pretty well on it, or no? What questions did you have about the questions on it?
Did you focus on people's interests?
Mm.
I mean, really focus.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but it's not a focal point.
Mm.
That was for me too. I
Mhm.
realized that I know,
Mhm.
you know, I started like, ooh, I know people's interests, you know. And I know based on, I guess, what they're into, but me consciously taking the time to find out, probably work on that a little bit more.
Good.
Yeah.
It's like you mentioned networking, right? Networking, when people go to network with people and they only talk about themselves, you know, that's the worst thing. You want to ask questions of other people.
I try to, in a lot of situations, do kind of a friendly interview.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm more likely to remember about the person or remember that I met the person if I can hook some of the interesting things that they do or have done with them. Okay? I might not always remember somebody's name, but if they tell me that their daughter is a competitive equestrian type of thing, and then their son is a Boy Scout. I mean, it's these things like that I'm kind of interested in, and I'm going to remember. I may go, oh gosh, I don't remember your name, but how is your daughter horseback riding? What's going on with that? And they'll tell me their name, and they're not offended that I forgot their name, which it's a weakness I have.
Oh, it's really important to
It's
try to remember.
important,
Yeah.
and I work really hard at it.
Yeah.
But they're likely to be a little bit more forgiving because I've shown that I didn't just blow them off. I really remembered important things about them. I just can't grasp their name at this second. And once I've heard their name twice or three times, then I've got it. But it's that initially just doesn't get hooked in there until I've had some sort of interaction. And so the way I do that is try to find some interesting things about them. I'm always interested in people's kids or their dogs or their hobbies. So that's where I'm going to hook it into. And eventually, in very short order, I overcome this challenge I have by doing that, and by remembering that about them, then I can go, ooh, her daughter's interested in that, and we have some aspect of that in this fundraiser we're going to do, or maybe she can help me get so I do that thing too. I mean, I kind of pull it all together. Not everyone's way of doing it, but since I have that problem with names, I had to find a workaround, and that's my workaround.
What are other ways people remember people's names? What are some tricks you do? Yes.
As soon as you meet them.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, Trey, so good to meet you, Trey.
Or I try to associate it with people I know already. Like, maybe I know another Christina or something. And
our first couple of classes, I actually drew the table
Ah.
and wrote everybody's name. So during the class, I could put a name to the face. And the second time when I came, I drew, and people were sitting in different places. I pulled out my first one, and I remembered where they were. But that's how, that's how I got to know people's names.
What is another way? Because I know that the method I use is association. You know, I was like, oh, I have an aunt named Sonia.
Yep.
My
That's
sister
what I do.
named Christina. I know somebody named
So my
Troy.
brother's name is David. I can, and I'll even say, oh, my brother's name is David. I'll never forget your name, and then I won't forget his name.
Yeah, I do a lot of association or grab a business card.
Now, if you grab a business card, a really good thing to do is write on the back. Where did you meet them? What did they, yeah.
Or on my phone in my notes section.
It's true.
I'll put such and such as mom.
Yeah, scan. That's a really good thing to do. Scan it and put information in there. Yeah. So, what questions on the relationships inventory did you struggle with or score low on?
People's names.
Names. Anything else?
Yeah. Do you request the help of others?
Mm-hmm.
And then you love and accept yourself.
Oh,
You know,
I do, and it's important to love and accept yourself, especially Christina, knowing your goals, because nobody else is going to love and accept you unless you yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of energy into being likable. I am who I am. Try to be respectful of you. You can go a little, but if you don't like me, you don't like me.
But you know, if you
I was low. I tell myself that all the time. I am what I am, and that's all.
yeah. But if you are likable, people are going to generally want to, have a better relationship with you than if you're not likable. So.
I mean, I got 50-some people in my downline, and when I go to a different center, I don't go straight to the manager. I go to the tellers first, and then I get initially to the managers or the leadership. And the same thing with call center. I start people on the phone. We're dealing in that stressful environment. I try to, if I know they've been out sick or went out with a kid, I always start with that or vacation. How was that? To let them know that hey, I keep up with you guys.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because when I worked at DPPR, Ken Lawson, when he was the secretary, and he was actually very good about remembering things about people. And I don't know if that was his natural skill or if he had some sort of note system or whatever. But, it was just very nice that he would remember something like Hollis Rotary or when do you want me to have you scheduled me for another Boys and Girls Club motivational meeting? And that, I don't know if he did it with everyone. He did that with me, and it was.
He probably did it with everyone.
I'm sure he did, but it made it feel personal.
Exactly, it was personal.
And so that if he had asked me to do something,
then you would.
I wouldn't have said no. I would have just found a way, work it in, and gotten it done. So that's why that's kind of because sometimes you're going to ask someone for something, and maybe it's in their job description or maybe it isn't, but they'll find a way if they have this sense of personal loyalty to you.
I was like my boss. My boss is very loyal to me, and I'm loyal to him. So in the mornings, usually I go and talk to him for 30 minutes, connect. Like if I'm gone for a couple days, okay, can we get back on track and get focused and get to what we need to get done?
Now, what Raquel said is really important, and I used to be the kind of person who would never ask for help from anyone. I was fiercely independent, even as a child. If I couldn't handle it myself, then. But now, I have learned that when somebody asks for your help, and you say, somebody asks for your help, they really want to help. You say, no, I don't need any help. That's not making them feel good about things. It's not helping you. So when people ask if they can help you, it's generally because they really want to help you. They may want to connect in some way. So if anyone ever asks for help, and Tanya can verify, if you get here early, you say, can I help you with something? I will never say, no, I don't need any help. I'll never say it now. I get it, that it's mutually beneficial when somebody offers help that you accept help. And I think it really takes maturity as a leader to get to that point where you realize that it is really hard, but the benefits are great. Truly, people don't ask you if they can help you unless they want to feel in some way involved. And when you're saying no to somebody saying, can I help, it's not a good thing. It doesn't make them feel good at all.
Well, when I offer to help you, it's part of it is my way of showing my appreciation because you do more than come here and just lecture us or, you've established relationship, you care about all of us, and it's just my way, and I've seen Christina do it, I've seen all of us do it, where it's just our way of showing you some appreciation. that is more than we paid money and we come to class.
Right.
We're getting something of really great value.
Yeah.
But the difference here in the question is not people asking you if you need help. This is you requesting help.
Yeah. But I'm
That
flipping
one
it
is
both
like the
ways,
tough
right?
one.
Because you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're
Oh,
okay. So I'm saying it goes both ways.
I see what you mean.
Because people will offer you help, and then you may need help, and there may not be anyone offering,
Right.
and you may want to request help.
Sometimes you simply have to ask because people don't know what you need or
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to offer. But if you'll ask, like for a, not in general, it's like when somebody dies or there's going through, and people say, well, just let me know if you need anything. That is not
No,
useful at
you're
all.
never gonna.
It's better to, at least for me, to call up and say, hey, do you need me to do your laundry? Could I run to the store for you? Do you want me to come over and walk the dog? Pick up the poop in the yard? If you've been letting the dog out, I can come do that. You kind of think, and even if they don't need any of those things, because you've offered those things, they might say, Tanya, I really need someone to pick up my prescription. Sure, not a problem. But you've given them things from dog poop to laundry, so they know that you're not making just a.
Last month when I was really, really sick, I couldn't eat, and a good friend who I hadn't seen in a long time called me up, just happened to call me up and said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm not doing so well right now. And I told her what was happening, and she said, oh, can I cook you some dinner? I'm like, God, no, please, I can't. Just the thought of food, no, thank you, but no, thank you. And she said, well, then what can I do? And I said, you know what would make me really happy? Because she and her husband owned a.
Yeah, you told me.
I did, okay. They owned a Mustang restoration, and I have arthritis in my hands, and it was a simple task of just needing to take the battery out for me because I can't, with my hands, I can't really do, what I used to love to do is work on my car, and I had a new battery, and I couldn't get the battery out because I couldn't, unbolt the battery. I said, if you could help me with that, that would be like amazing to me. And it didn't have anything to do with my health. It had to do with a positive distraction from reality, quite frankly. And so they came over and very quickly took care of it for me. And then they were like, they noticed other things that needed done, and so I had all these wetsuits, these scuba wetsuits, and I just kind of like put nails in the garage wall because that's the best I could do. They're like, well, why don't we come over sometime and put some boards up? I said, well, that'd be great. And they're like, what are these boards being used for? I said, I don't know. They've been there since I built the house. And they're like, well, let's just take care of it right now. I said, no, you don't need to do that. You've already helped more than enough. And, 5 minutes later, they had this really nice thing hung for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is just like beyond amazing, So, but there was a time when I would have said, no, I'm good. I'm good. So, no, don't bother. Don't bother coming over. I'm good. I'm fine. I got this. So, ask for help. Okay.
And she does. The firecracker, when you and your friend came over to me and
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So that was my only time I've tried to run in the past month. And I run as a sighted guide for a friend who's blind. And I have arthritis in my hands, so I can't, we're quite the pair. I can't pin his or my numbers on. And he's blind, so he can't really do it himself. And so, was that what I came to you? Yeah, so I always ask for help, always. I'm like, excuse me, can you please open these safety pins for me? Because I am physically unable to open a safety pin. Yeah, so thank you for that. All right, let's see. You have to have difficult conversations when it comes to relationships. That's a big part of effective relationships. And so constructive feedback, I noticed you posted something in the Leadership Academy group. What did you post?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay, it was something about, basically using language that was, I have to pull it up. But anyway, I said I like to call it constructive feedback. And that criticism or something. I never call it criticism. Call it constructive feedback. So, and that makes a big difference in the way something is perceived. It's
I try to be real careful not to blame, because with criticism, it always sounds like blame.
Yeah.
And if you start off casting blame, you've just done in the communication, because everybody's going to put up a defensive wall. Right? They're going to feel attacked, and they're going to put up a wall, because that's who we are and what we do. On the other side, if what you're doing is reflecting on the situation, let's figure out, asking for help on how you can proceed, how you can. Yeah, I know that I've been successful in my various jobs when we sit down and we try to figure out how to make it better without saying, "Oh, thank you so much," without saying to anyone, you screwed up, or it's like, these things can happen. How can we figure out so it doesn't happen again? Everybody at some point will reverse a number or a letter or something like that. So let's figure out what kind of redundancy can we put in, since it's so important we don't do that. What kind of redundancy can we put in so it doesn't happen?
The article you posted was, good managers give constructive criticism, but truly masterful leaders offer constructive praise.
Yes. Oh, that one, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care if you want to call it praise or criticism. That's just constructive feedback. No matter what. People do want to get feedback, even the negative feedback about what they're doing well and what they
hear a lot of the negative stuff. You don't always hear the positive.
You say that, but I can tell you that in most environments, people are reluctant to share the negative stuff. They bite their tongue. They complain to other people about it, and they do nothing about it. They don't have the difficult conversations. And then dealing with conflict. Conflict is a natural thing to happen in personal lives and in professional lives. It happens. But people who put their head in the sand and avoid it and think it's just going to go away on its own, it's way worse. It festers like an open wound. It's bad. And so if you find yourself avoiding those difficult conversations, ask yourself why you're lacking leadership abilities and what you can do about it.
It's tough.
It is.
It was very tough for me, especially if they were if they were senior to me, and I was in a leadership role. That was very, very difficult. And I did that for the longest time. I avoided the evaluations, like the like I literally had to have my supervisor call me and tell me I had to do it because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't, whatever it was. To where I would give I remember giving just really kind of just out of the so that I wouldn't rock the boat.
But see, you admitted you were not equipped. You weren't trained. You were just promoted into a supervisory position without the tools.
Yes.
And so you did the best you could, which a lot of people do, and it's unfortunate. And so they do avoid those.
And I had to get better because one of them asked me if there was
good.
So it took me a while, but I got better over the years. But I put it in the sweetest, politest way possible that I absolutely could. So it was, they were very difficult. Not fun.
Is that, is conflict avoidance even fear?
It is fear, and it's normally self-protection instead of protecting the other person. So when you say I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, the fact is you didn't want to have to deal with the,
with their hurt feelings.
Right.
With their hurt feelings.
With their hurt feelings.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, why?
I can
No, 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 no,
No.
I'm a Libra too.
That's a cop out.
I'm a Libra too.
Ah, wow, 4 Libras at the table. That is a cop out. Okay, so when people blame it on, that's why I don't like these assessments where it says that you're, a true colors or you're whatever label you have. I see people use that label. Now I haven't heard anyone use their horoscope as a label.
And plus, when you do this true color test, you have to be in the right set of mind to get the right answer. Because sometimes you do it at morning, and then in the afternoon it's totally different.
Well, not only that, you could have gone through something really challenging. So you can take it on one day and take it, a week later, and you'll get completely different results. But what I see is companies spend a lot of money on these tools, and they get these results, and people, they're like, oh, you're a, throw that label at the person.
INTJ.
Right, INTJ. And, or I'm that way because I'm a green, blue, or whatever. It's just silliness. So I don't want to hear that you're a Libra.
Okay. I think it's because I'm afraid of hurting the person's feelings or dealing with their hurt feelings or, just having to deal with the emotion.
But most of the time, if you handle it well, they're not going to be hurt. So you're going to start out with something positive, and then you're going to get into, how you really want that now that you want them to excel, and you see so much good in them, and there's one area that you think that would really benefit not just them, but the whole unit or company if they would work on these things.
You can't have a good relationship without conflict.
I agree.
Yeah, you just can't, because that means you're hiding stuff, and you're not being truthful with the other person. That's just not right.
Also, it is helpful in this because it happened to me one time, and the person actually said in the sandwich approach.
I use the sandwich approach. Compliment sandwich.
Compliment sandwich. Compliment, and then the issue, and then another compliment. But along with that was this class might help you. So I ended up going to that class, that seminar, and what that told me from my supervisor was that they saw value in me, that they cared enough for me, that they saw this board. I had these dimples, and they saw this board, and they were going to help me overcome it, and that because they valued me.
Exactly.
And I ended up leaving there thinking, wow, this is great. Here's an issue, and I'm going to get some. And it really made me feel wonderful and much. I was already loyal to my boss, but much more loyalty. So I think within that compliment sandwich, you could also end up with some strategies, or we can get together and work on this, because that's what you're telling them. They have value to you, and almost every employee, it's important. Like you want to please your parent, you want to please your supervisor.
Right.
You really do. If you like your job and everything, you want to please your supervisor.
Have we covered feedback in this class yet? No, we haven't. We haven't done performance management yet. So I have something that I developed called the psychology of feedback, and what's going through people's heads and why you're reluctant to give feedback. And anyway, so if we end up covering that performance management, that was something that you didn't vote very high.
Receiving it is hard sometimes too.
Receiving it is hard when you're insecure.
Yeah.
But that's where the plan to help you improve makes it a little easier because it says you have value.
So,
and if your supervisor says, look, I really value you. I wouldn't waste my time dealing with this if I didn't see you being an important part of our team.
Is this the topic that would benefit you if we got into more detail? Okay, good. The quote by Theodore Roosevelt, "The most important single ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Why?
If you lead a team, you can't get along with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then either one of two things: if the morale's going to be great, or they're going to try to impress you, try to impress you to show that they do care about the job. But if they still see that you're not coming back towards the center towards them, you're just going to really push them off in that regard there. It's very important to build those relationships. And so I believe that's
I feel that if you don't, things, and I can't think of another word, but just disintegrate your office environment, your teamwork, your efforts, it's almost like beyond morale. It's just like things just go away. You know, you have one looking for a job, you have another one doing this one gossiping, this one doing this, I don't know what, the other one's just not coming in, calling in sick. It's just like things disintegrate without relationship building.
True.
But yes, for example, relationships and connections are the foundation to any sustainable partnership. Connection is the building block to trust in any relationship.
Yeah, could not agree more.
I said almost everything I do requires collaboration. You can't collaborate if you don't have collaboration.
That's right.
Great point. Yeah. How have your relationships affected your level of success? And how have your relationships affected someone else's level of success from a positive and negative standpoint?
I almost torpedoed my career alone, my first job at Legal Services. I had a very bad relationship with one of the legal secretaries there. And someone cared enough to take me aside to say, you know what, Tommy, this is your first legal job. The secretary has been here for 10 years. She'll be here for another 10 or 15 years. You're only going to be here for a couple of years, and you're going to want a good recommendation. Make amends. I mean, literally, it was, you're good at what you do, make amends. And by the time I left there, she just adored me because I only focused on the things that were positive about her. And the things that just drove me crazy, I just handled myself.
Now, did you go back and thank the person who gave you that
did.
feedback? Good. I love it when people do that. Yeah.
I did, and interesting enough, that person's still there, and I sit on the board.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
See?
but I almost torpedoed my career because you come out of law school and you're a cocky son of a gun, and you just don't think, you know. I'm just telling you. So I learned, you know, and that has never come up again. Never ever. I get along with everybody, from the janitor to the department secretary. I get along with all of them, and if any of them need help, I'll pitch in.
Stephen Covey said that.
Treat the janitor
The same.
Absolutely.
I did that at the legislature.
I treat everyone the same, but I don't get along with people when I see injustice happening. If I see somebody treating somebody else poorly, that's when I stop trying to like the person. I'll give them feedback about it, but I've been in several situations where I've seen injustice, and that to me is something that I would never allow to happen in my organization. And
well, I've spoken to other people when I've seen them acting as bullies towards others. I am not good at protecting myself from being bullied. After my car accident, I mean, normally people don't try to bully me because I'm pretty okay. After my car accident, I was very vulnerable because I brain concussion. It took me 2 years to recover from it. And I'm still somewhat math impaired. I'm okay if I use a calculator, but just counting up numbers is going to be a bit of a challenge for me. And it was very, very hard to deal in my office where I was being bullied, because no longer was I the one that they could count on giving the most complex cases to, and that I would put in 60, 70 hours a week. I was literally unable to do that. My brain, it takes 2 years to heal, and I was unable to do that. And some of the people started resenting that I was taking a position and I was being paid and I was going in and out of family medical sick leave, and they were handling more cases than they should have handled. You know, I understand, but, you know, I had done that for them when there had been, but mine was clearly the one that was lasting the longest, and we didn't know what type of recovery. And I was bullied by everyone except my supervisor. And I was the one that had trained each and every one of those people. And I would come home and I would cry. I would just cry. And that was why I retired October 11th last year. Even though my neurologist said my brain had come back and I was fine, once they had decided I had no value, there was no coming back from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did my orders, and they would rip them apart, and I thought, well, maybe it's something with me. So I took some of their older orders, and I changed them, you know, where I just changed the names on the orders of the days, and it circulated, and they ripped them apart. So at that point, I knew it was personal, and I knew there was just, I was not going to be able to cope with that and overcome that. So I went ahead and retired.
Why did your supervisor not do anything since your supervisor was the only one?
I talked with him about it, but once again, he was made a supervisor without any training. And he got a big salary, and I like him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy in many ways. He's not a good supervisor, and he just wanted to keep everybody else happy.
Yeah, and ultimately, if he would have stepped up, right? If he would have stepped up and said, "Look, this kind of behavior can't be tolerated here," others may have been inclined to change their behavior. But I think he made a good choice getting out of a toxic environment.
So I got out of it, and you know, at that time, there was this debate I was having whether or not I should do this, whether I could afford this because I was going to be retired. And you said only you can decide if you're going to invest in yourself. And I decided I was going to invest in myself. And it turned out I really needed this investment because of what ended up happening with my medical condition. So, but I know I'd always been one of these people that would take someone aside and say, I don't know if you realize it, but you're coming across as a bullet. And that can really come and bite you on your, and I would say, ass. Because if someone files a grievance, which they could, you're the one that is really going to be tainted by this. So, you know, let's figure out some ways. And I was not their supervisor. You know, I would say, let's figure out some ways you can respond so this doesn't happen, or, you know, but you cannot be a bully. You will, and you're giving, I'm not a bully. And I said, I know you're not, otherwise I wouldn't come here and talk to you, whether that was true or not. I'd say, I know you're not, otherwise I wouldn't waste my time and my breath talking with you. But this is how you're coming across, and it must change. And better this comes from me than it goes up goes up the chain. But I really now understand to the core of my being the evil and the injury of being bullied.
Yeah, I teach an entire class on bullying in the workplace, and when I first told my dad I was teaching this class several years ago, he was shocked because he had never experienced or seemingly ever seen anyone be bullied. And so he was shocked. He was like, what? There's bullying in the workplace? Well, he was at NASA, and guess what? He ended up being bullied by his supervisor, who was threatened by him. So bullies are always motivated by insecurity.
It's hard to deal with.
It's very hard to deal with, and it's
three basically up above me, bullying me at once, and then my boss said, "Don't worry about them. You report to me. I don't care what everyone else says. I got your back if something happens. I'll take the blame."
That's good.
But
It's psychological warfare, is what it is. Where the payroll, it's the equivalent of domestic violence. The impact of a bullying victim, a target, is the equivalent of domestic violence, physically and emotionally, on the person, and it stays with them forever. And the difference is the bully is on the payroll, so where the abuser is on the payroll. So it's really bad.
One bully, I emailed something to answer a question back, and I put an exclamation point. And she wrote back to me how it was unprofessional to put the exclamation point in the answer. She thought someone was yelling at her, blah, blah, blah. My boss was like, you're done with this person. Don't worry.
But what would be good is if you could talk to the person.
They do not listen.
So here's the thing. Bullies are used to not being confronted. They're used to getting away with behavior. And confronting a bully and calling them out in a way without emotion is the best possible way to stop the behavior.
I have done that now that I'm no longer there, and under any sort of threat of repercussion, we had lunch and I talked about it. And I said, you know what, you made me so insecure, or I felt so insecure.
Yeah, they didn't make you insecure.
I spent thousands of dollars going to the Mayo Clinic and did 3 days of testing. And I can tell you, regardless of how you feel and how you think, I'm not stupid, I'm extremely capable, and I now have the documentation. I mean, that was important for me. I had allowed them to undermine me to the extent that I wasn't sure I could do anything anymore.
Well, and bullies do typically focus on people's performance, and they make up things about people's performance. And so, Christina, I would encourage you to continue to build your self-confidence to the point where when you do confront anyone who treats you that way again, that you say, your behavior is not acceptable, and I will not tolerate that. But you do so without emotion, because bullies love when people get emotional, without emotion, and you stick to the facts. So insecurity is something that they feed on. And when
they
deep
find
down,
out where your insecurity is. And because I had this brain injury, I felt insecure.
Yeah. Anyone else? Your relationship? How have your relationships affected your level of success? And your relationship affected someone else's level of success?
I was leaving the job I'm in without.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a young man, manager. He's had his own personal goals, but one of his goals, his business goal, was to be a financial center manager by the age of 25. And he was finished up his second year at University of Georgia in credit union management school. And the first thing I told him, I said, I wasn't successful in my campaign at Florida for office position, but I do want you to campaign for an office position. And he became his class president. And then he had the number one, one of the top 5 projects his second year, and so he's really excelling. He's really pouring it on.
That's awesome.
So he's learning a lot. And he came in and said, now I understand all those different things you talk about. So, and I looked at him, you keep learning. That only make us better.
Great. You're being a very good mentor for him. Good.
When I make a note, I never hesitate to help good people.
Good people only, though.
Good people.
I'm with you on that.
I've got an executive staff member that left me in the spring. And actually, it's been over a year ago now. And he went to be a general manager at a co-op in Georgia. He and I talk all the time. And I try to help him with his problems. He's got a lot more problems than I do. But I try to help him with his
That's nice. All right, here are some relationship rules. Love and accept yourself.
I'm getting there.
Okay, good.
I like myself. I don't know that I always love myself.
You love yourself in those red glasses,
Oh,
though.
I do. But those glasses are just so cute.
All right, put energy into being likable. Remember people's names. Focus on their interests. Request the help of others. And add value to people. Thoughts about these? Let's move on then to equipping. What do you think of this construction job? So, one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. Teamwork is the heart of great achievement, and teams involve more than one person. So when you have people, you have resources, ideas, and energy, and hopefully the people on your team don't have exactly the same mindset as you, and they're willing to question. Then you have the ability to equip people successfully. So teams benefit from multiple perspectives. Take the equipping inventory now, please, and go ahead and answer the questions at the bottom as well. This is pretty darn good, if I say so myself.
That was the best I've had. I'm just not
Thank
rating you, but I'm just
No.
saying.
I just made it up. I didn't have a recipe.
Yeah. And the salmon.
Mm.
Very
I
good.
love salmon. Thank you. That makes me happy.
We're still waiting for the leadership cookbook.
I actually have been talking about that for a couple of years.
I know, we talked about
You know
it
the story, right?
At
My
the second meeting.
Right. My great-grandmother, when she was dying, what she said to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll have to share that.
This would be a great way to make money for your nonprofit.
I love it. So I'll let everyone finish it. There's ice cream if anyone wants to be a little more decadent. So. The cherries are good though. They're like ice cream that are already. Yeah, come on.
So are we found a place?
What's that?
The cones, yeah.
Okay.
Do you go to corn often or no? Sure.
Do I go to
Someone else want one?
Oh, the church. I forgot about that. Yeah. When we go to church, yeah, that's where we go.
You got those things?
We seem to miss a lot.
Woo!
But is that where have you been on that for a while?
I'm a member there, but
Oh,
yeah.
are you? We love the pastor. She is so good.
Yeah, I like their old ones better. So I think I need to.
Well, I know the old one was good. The
Not the old guy, but
Dennis Lewis situation, so that way I can.
I don't remember.
Look around.
I don't remember who it was. You know.
Anytime, look around.
but I was very
Absolutely.
routinely going, and then I figured out how sleeping in on Sundays felt good.
Well, we're at a battle of horse shows.
Yeah, that's
This or that, so we miss a lot. Yeah, we can try.
All right, we are all back and eating ice cream, and some people are eating cherries, and some people are eating both. Wish you were here, Rochester. So I'll wait for them to come back. Sure. I'm glad you like it.
Just checked in.
Thank you. I love it when people check in. Thank you. So social media check-ins are always appreciated. So how did you do on the equipping inventory? Pretty good?
I hope low scores were good.
Yeah, I hope those.
What's that?
I hope low scores were good.
Okay, what were the low ones?
All of them except the last one.
Number 6, do you want to keep control of everything?
Good. Yeah, that is good. Yeah. Yeah, because when I was not a good leader, I wanted to have control of everything. So in my younger years especially, I thought that was what leadership was. I thought having control was, and you know, what happens when you think you need to be in control all the time is that life will show you that you have no control whatsoever. So, yeah.
Also hold everybody back.
That's right. Yeah, that's a really important part of this. When it comes to equipping people, if you're in control, you're not letting them use their brains. You're not letting them use the skills that you hired them for, and you're certainly not helping their morale or their desire to be loyal to the organization or to you. So what else? What other questions?
Well, number 4 is my downfall. You receive ego satisfaction from being needed, and yes, I do.
Yeah.
I really do. And the negative part of that is that I'm probably trying either too hard or keeping too much control or dealing with an insecurity because, you know, I should be getting my ego satisfaction from just being part of the winning team. I'm really, and I like being part of the winning team, but I love it when they say, well, we couldn't have done this without you. I live for those moments, which is silly.
Well, and that just tells you that deep down there's still insecurities that you need to work on, right? Oh, Bodie's cleaning the dishwasher. He's doing some. I was thinking the same thing, and then I remembered cleaning the dishes before I turn the dishwasher on. I know, it's a good thing I got a Bodie.
Good boy.
Look at him.
Good
Oh
boy.
my goodness. That's funny. Thankfully, the dishwasher steams it nicely. So that's funny.
Well, you know what I found when I baked salmon one time and I didn't put the aluminum foil in,
Yeah.
and it got all kind of grody on the inside. I put it down for Maddie, and the enzymes in her tongue cleaned it perfectly. And then I put it in the dishwasher, so I didn't have to scrub it.
That's
But I too have a dishwasher and use sanitizer, the whole thing.
So a sidebar, Tanya asked me earlier about doing, what's that?
My wife can go off.
But dishwashers
My mother
clean
would
everything. Dishwashers take care of every germ better than you could if you hand wash something. So Tanya mentioned earlier about a recipe book, and I said I've actually been wanting to do one for a few years, and so here's the little sidebar story. So my great-grandmother gave me this necklace that I wear every day that went missing for months and came back to me. When she was dying, she was 96 years old, and she was in, he's worried about you.
Oh,
He's got the one, no, so he had the one paw, and he was going for the second paw. No, don't take the paw down. No, that's a cue. Okay, so have you had medical tests lately? When was your last physical?
3 months ago.
3 months ago. Okay.
Well, that recently.
Okay.
Blood work, everything.
So no, he's normally pretty spot on. If it's not stress, then he's saying that there's something physically.
Oh.
And so he actually was going for the second paw. So the second paw, truly, it could be blood sugar, it could be blood pressure, it could be, and he's very, very astute. So just pay attention.
Go to your doctor, please. We like you. We like
What was he doing with the paws? Trying to put both of them on?
If he tries to put two paws up on you, two paws. Okay, if one paw means he just thinks you need some love. Two paws, he's giving a message that he's worried that there's something happening, and he's very on point with it. I think I told you I had a Leadership Academy participant. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, and he's a professor at FAMU, and he was like, no, I'm fine, and I'm like, just maybe get checked. Well, he went and he had like sky-high blood pressure, and he had like all kinds of things were happening, and he said it was a wake-up call because he really thought he was fine. So anyway, hopefully everything is fine, but I'm just saying, be aware, because he only does that when he's really worried about somebody. So, okay, so back to the story. She was dying. She was in North Miami Beach, and she had lived at home by herself, until she was 95 years old. And so and I remember the last probably 5 years of her life, she's like, take me now, I'm ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, God, I've lived a good life, I'm ready, I'm tired, take me now, okay? And her daughter is like that now. Her daughter is 99 years old, just turned 99. And but anyway, so I'm sitting there, and she said, and she was barely talking much, and she just perked up when she saw me. She said, "Come here." And I said, "Okay." And I come over, and she starts talking, and she didn't have a lot of strength in her voice, but she's like, "Take the flour and add the 2 eggs." And what is she? She's really losing it, And but I'm just listening. Okay, Nana, and she keeps talking, and clearly she's talking about food, making food, and she was a great cook. But all of a sudden she says, and that's your recipe for success. I want you to be successful in life. I want you to have all the right ingredients. And I was a teenager at the time, to be successful. And so my dream is to write a book called, write a cookbook called Recipes for Success. So anyway, that was my sidebar.
Well, all I'm saying is a nice cookbook like that could raise funds.
I know. Well, my intent all along has been to make it some kind of fundraiser for the nonprofit. My dream, my goal, my big goal, if you don't know this already, is to build an aqua therapy center.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I know, but it would be a warm water aqua therapy center for people with disabilities, people with injuries, people who need rehabilitation. We have 3 pools, one deep one that would do scuba and other things, one shallow one for physical therapy, and then a 3rd shallow one for animal therapy. So anyway, so
That is. Yeah.
I'll be a volunteer there.
I would love that. I will gladly accept your help. So back to the equipping inventory. Needing to be needed is definitely something that can be not a good thing, because sometimes you end up causing the other person, especially if they're a taker, to take, and you're not doing them any favors.
Right. You become an enabler.
Yes, exactly.
So there's a fine line, and no, it's not such a fine line. It's a pretty broad line.
And I've struggled with that myself, and I have woken up now to the idea that there are certain people in this world who really just take.
Well,
they don't really. It's not a.
It's
They do. They suck the life out of you, and if you let them, and it's not their fault. It's your fault.
Yours.
And so you have to let go of that need. So what else? What else about the inventory? Doing tasks yourself is something that I see a lot of otherwise great leaders have failure to delegate. And even tasks that they might not enjoy, they do because they know if they do it themselves, it's going to get done right, and they have a million excuses as to why they won't delegate.
I think I'm pretty good about estimating people's abilities. You know, I rarely underestimate people. I generally can see successful qualities in them that may just need a little bit more training or development or just recognition.
That's very important. I see good in just about anyone. When I see people in conflict with one another, and I'm called in often to organizations to help mediate, I see good in everybody, and almost everyone is able to change whatever behavior or characteristic they have that's holding them back if they're willing to take a good hard look at themselves and make some changes. And when I see those changes happen, that's profound to me. But I also feel like some of us have a gift for seeing talent in other people, and we've got to let those people know that, because a lot of times their insecurities are holding them back, and they've never had anyone believe in them.
So I put a 3 sometimes on you underestimate people. Are you in the habit of doing everything yourself, and you want to keep control of everything? So a little story I had to share about those. My printer went out, so I couldn't print this notification. I had to print the filter schedule. And one of the parents had noticed that I kept on saying, you won't get it, but they had not received it yet. So she finally said, no, do you need some help? And I was like, yes, but, I felt like, I knew she was totally equipped and adequate to complete the task, but, it was still like this uncomfortability of me having to surrender and not even ask for help because she'd offer it, but accept the help that she was offering. So I was like, okay. Eventually, I did allow her to do it, and we were going back and forth with the emails, like, do you want it like this? And I'm like, okay, change this and change that. I'm like, just little minute things, But I did realize that I'm like, gosh, I just have to let people do their thing.
You do.
Kind of trust that it's going to be okay. But,
even if it's not exactly how you would have done it. And that's a big part of that's insecurity there. You've got to recognize that that's what you're doing is you're showing your insecurity when you're doing that kind of thing. So even though your language and saying I surrender to, and you didn't surrender to anything, you needed help. She offered help. And next time, if the opportunity presents itself, hopefully you will just say, thank you. I would love your help. You don't even have to say I need. I would love your help. Because remember that people who are asking if they can help you actually want to help you. People generally don't ask if they don't want to help you. And so when you said yes, you were making her feel valued. And when you started correcting things and moving things, it devalued her a little bit, the gift, right? So just keep that in mind. You know, maybe a little bit of tweaking, but yeah, let it go. Yeah. So I had something similar. So I have somebody who I mentor, who I call, he's like a little brother to me, and he's going through a really hard time. He has paraplegia, and he is one of my main scuba students, and he's really struggling with pain and depression and a lot of things right now. And I've always told him from the moment I met him that I just see that he's destined for greatness. Like, I see it, and he doesn't see it, and he's young. You know, sometimes he questions if he should even be here, and it breaks my heart. So he wanted to give back to me because I give a lot to him. I've given him scholarships, and I give him, you know, gifts all the time of things that I think are important to him, training, and, you know, just things that I think are of value to him. And so I've given him like stretching class, you know, stretching with a therapist, and just things that I know will help him. So he wanted to give back to me, and he said, "Can I help you with the nonprofit?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I would love your help." And he said, "Well, I was thinking maybe I could do a flyer for you." And honestly, I thought, I don't really need a flyer, but I'm like, that's a great idea. And I'm thinking, you know what? He thinks it's a good idea to have a flyer. Maybe it's a good idea to have a flyer at all these events where I'm volunteering. And so I'm like, have at it. Go for it. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, you know, just the basic stuff. Just go for it. And he did a beautiful job. I mean, beautiful. And yeah, I gave him some feedback, but he was like, please, you know, give me feedback. And I'm like, you know, and what he did, I'll show you at the end if we have time, I thought was just excellent. And he feels so good that he helped me with something. And, you know, and here, now we have this thing that I didn't think necessarily I needed, that actually is probably going to be a really great thing for these events where I'm volunteering, where people can get more information, you know, where they can get help from people other than just me. Because we do a lot of out-of-town events, like in Orlando, and I'm constantly saying, you know, go to, and I say out loud a website to go to, where they can find somebody in their area who does the kind of volunteer work that I do, hopefully. And but so this is great. You know, this is a really smart thing, and it made him feel really good too. And you know, and I just think that you have to understand that when people want to help you, they really want to help you, and you got to start letting go of the control thing, letting go of, right? Insecurity. Just recognize, just recognize this is insecurity that's causing me to act this way. And does this really need to be just like that?
And it definitely was, because the parent is a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for not that I felt inferior, but you know, maybe.
When you say it like that,
right.
Like, not that I felt inferior, the first thing I thought is she felt inferior.
She felt inferior, yeah.
So I want to take you back to what I said earlier about comparing. And you said I don't compare, but you do compare. Yeah. And that just goes to show, and a lot of people are guilty of that. So stop comparing. So you let yourself feel inferior. And when you feel inferior, guess what happens? Bad behavior happens. So that's when people tend to bully, when they feel inferior, when they're threatened by somebody.
Or they become a braggart.
Right. There's a number of bad behaviors that can happen. But no good can come out of comparing. No good.
Yeah. We recently promoted a young lady who was being wooed by a competitor, but giving her tenure, her knowledge, basically she's irreplaceable. And, you know, at least at this stage. And so she basically has she still reports to me, but she has a financial center that reports to her. And so when I'm out, like today, if I'm here, well, she's my backup. When I went to that conference, hey, you want to run this meeting? Now, a long time ago, about a year ago, she said, I never want your job. Guess what? You're a hair away from having my job.
Excellent.
And I don't.
And you're not worried about it.
No,
yeah, That's a sign of a true
No,
leader.
I'm not worried
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And so I have one way that I do my weekly agendas, which is like an automated time flow in Excel. I can just move the time, and everybody knows how much time we get at. Her style is just doing it old-fashioned way. She sent me a copy, and I said, excellent. That's her.
Yeah.
It doesn't influence what I do.
No.
That's your style. If it works for you, you run this meeting. You know, we say, I was saying in the Army, say it's good enough for government work, but that's good enough for government work. And I let her handle it.
Yeah, let her
You know?
handle it. Yeah.
Give her feedback when she needs it.
Give her feedback, but don't be completely hands off. But certainly,
Yeah.
hey, if it's working and it's different than the way you would have done, sometimes the different is actually better. I've seen that. So, good. Other thoughts about these questions? All right, let's look at the questions then. In what ways have other people invested in your personal growth or increased your knowledge and skill level?
They've mentored me, they've given me quality feedback, both positive and opportunities for growth. They've arranged for me to go to conferences or classes, and sometimes they just go, great job, Tanya, good job. Like I do with my dogs. I said, good job, good job. I try to do that with people now because we don't hear that enough. Not just to say thank you, but good job.
My supervisor took a chance on me, and that's one of the reasons why I was able to go forward with the job, the encouragement. But he said, you might not have the title, but you can still operate in that capacity. And my pastor did the same thing. I'm director of Christian education at my church, and I'm like, I don't even go to Sunday school half the time. But he took a chance on me, and now I'm growing into that title. So taking a chance on people.
When do you start your new job?
August, the end of August.
Ooh, so exciting.
Did you put in your notice already?
She's streaming this.
I put my board has helped me as much as anybody ever has. My first 3 years there, they didn't have an evaluation process, and so my evaluation was, you're doing a good job.
Which is the worst
with
possible
no
thing you
feedback
can say to
at all,
somebody. Yeah.
and so I worked with them to develop an evaluation process.
Great.
And the last couple of years they've done that, and now we have very open, meaningful communication about improvement areas, and not just with me, but with Talcott and what they want to see done better or different. It makes for a much better relationship, and it's helped me a lot.
And evaluation, we've talked about this. Evaluation is really key to increasing performance. Everybody should be evaluated.
But the one thing I got them to do was it is not a number-based system. It is comments.
I like a combination of both, personally.
I don't like numbers.
I know you don't like it. But I can tell you that typically both are helpful. And if you have numbers, then you need to specify what each number means. So I do a lot of developing evaluation forms and then training people on how to use those forms. We just did one for for Gadsden County Board of Commissioners. I know that was tough. Let me tell you, that was tough. But I'm telling you, it's probably the best county administrator evaluation form in the state, and the best county attorney form as well, because it uses a combination of quantitative and qualitative feedback. But everyone, if they mark outside of the norm, has to leave a comment, or it doesn't count.
Wow.
That's how you get people to not just check the box, the 3 or whatever. Yeah.
I tell you, when you get 5s on your evaluation, which is what I had typically done, that's wonderful. The comments are the icing on the cake.
Yeah, they are. You need
They
the comments.
truly are the icing on the cake.
Well, because certain people will just check the box if there's
Some
a
people
number.
just check off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
You don't want to take
Right.
Which is terrible. That's
And
like,
so you
to me,
take
that's like
everybody
saying,
gets it so it has no meaning.
right.
Well, to
That's
some
like saying,
people, 5 means
yeah.
you're good. To other people, 3 means you're good. And
Yeah, some people say
sometimes
you
it's hard
can
to
never
tell where
get
you're
to a
going.
5.
Right.
Right.
What
Okay,
aggravates
I've had
me
this
is when
discussion
like
with-
first year you do the evaluation and they get 5s, I'm like,
There's no room for improvement.
yeah, there's no room for improvement.
Yeah. Anyway.
Except sometimes there are some things you do so good that
Right.
you're really exceeding constantly, and that's different from you can improve.
But I meant from the first year you on the job.
And also just having like all the same number pretty much to me is a sign that the person cares less about the evaluation. And saying good job to somebody, I want specifics. Someone, what did you did a great job with that such and such project. You really stepped up, you know. So.
Well, I also like gold stars. I had a boss that actually gave gold stars when you knocked it out of the park.
Wow.
And I saved every one of Henry Bittaker's
Huh.
comments on final.
Huh. Yeah.
Because they were so far and few between. That if I got a gold star, I kept it.
So, what could you gain from equipping another person? What task do you currently perform that you'd like to equip another person to do? And how would this increase your effectiveness as well as benefit the other person you equip? Yes.
I put entitlement and fulfillment at the same time.
Okay, what task are you thinking?
For me, like planning events and stuff, I like to be in control so that, oh, can I help? Okay, I'm going to let you do this, this, and this, and this.
So you just said, I like to be in control. And have
I mean, like in
I know.
planning events and stuff.
I know what
And
you mean.
there's an event next week, which I was asked to help with, so I'm kind of upset with that. But I guess they knew that I wasn't in town. But it's our employee appreciation lunch, so I'm like, oh my goodness, this is my first time not being at an event like this and helping my boss remember to do this, 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 and that. So I'm like freaking out.
Let it go.
I am.
Did I tell you the story about my scuba student who said, did I tell you the story about the scuba students, Amber? Did I tell you the story?
Yeah.
And have I said it here? Okay.
And Finley.
Yes, and the baby coming out of it?
Yeah.
I have shared it here?
Yes.
You two
Oh,
are the
yes,
only
yes,
ones.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So,
The two of them met, yes.
right. Well, long story short, so I have a coaching client, Amber, who also was the Leadership Academy graduate, and she's fantastic at everything she does, like super excelling at everything. But I knew something was holding her back. Prescribed scuba for her as a way of just getting her way out of her comfort zone. She was terrified of water, and at the last minute, she asked if I had an extra seat. And she invited her soon-to-be ex-husband to have that seat. And it was really awkward and weird. And she was like, oh, it's okay. We've known each other since we're teenagers. We'll be fine. And through the class, I gained a new respect for him because I had only ever heard her side of what was happening between the two of them. And I realized that he was a good guy. Like he had her back. He had her back in everything we did. So we were doing this really hard skill that freaks a lot of people out, and it's sharing air. And you have to trust the other person completely, and you have to let go of control, and you have to trust. And so she struggled with it, and she panicked, and she came up and she said, Ray, you're doing that all wrong, and she blamed him, and I said, actually, he was doing it correctly. You need to trust, you need to let go, you need to, be ready for the skill by trusting. And she goes, and she said it so loud that it like echoed across the neighborhood. But I like to be in control. And it was like the universe stopped. That was the message she needed to hear. And it was the weirdest thing. And we just all paused. Everyone paused. And I said, that's exactly the problem. And everything in her life changed at that moment, including the fact that she stopped needing to be in control. Right away, we got back in the water. She did the skill perfectly with her now back together husband.
Wow.
They ended up having a baby together
Wow.
through the process.
Wow.
They named her Finley because when they were scuba diving, they both fell in love with scuba diving, and they had to be close enough to touch their fins. And so being in control can really hold you back. And it did hold her back, but she doesn't have that feeling anymore. And in fact, with a little baby, You can't be in control if you wanted to be in control. There is no control. Okay?
And he'll be even more so when Finley's a toddler.
I'm sure. But anyway, so the control thing is key to getting to the next level. So, all right. Anyone else for what could you gain from equipping another person? What task would you like to let go of, and how would the other person benefit as well as yourself? What task?
I mean, for me, if I can get another subject matter expert like the young man I mentioned earlier and show him how, I'm showing him how to do things in Excel, like pivot tables.
I love pivot tables.
He was like, how do you do it? And I said, I'll show you some things now, and then we'll progressively do more things, because when I do my dashboard for him, it's all pivot tables, charts, or a bar graph or something like that there. He's like, wow, so yeah, it saves me a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so, but him in banking school or management school for credit unions, I've got somebody that I can share what I've learned from banking school in Florida, some to what me, because it's two different schools, but it enables me to have somebody else, and we can filter that or cascade it horizontally across to the other managers. And he's really jazzed about that there. And going back to one, I didn't speak on one. I'm here because you remember last year, you was actually coming to the office doing, I seemed like it was monthly or either weekly.
I was doing a lot of, maybe it was every other week I was at their credit union doing leadership training.
The HR director was like, hey, Gabrielle's got this other class. And I was like, what are you saying? It took me a couple of weeks.
I know, he was dragging his feet. They were like, we really think he could benefit. But here's the thing, that's an investment in you that your employer saw. And to me, it says a lot about their confidence in you and the fact that they want you to be the best version of yourself.
I was really hoping, like, when I did call you, like, the seat is filled. I was like,
I actually held the seat for you, so.
It's been wonderful. I'm glad you did.
Good.
Gabrielle, in answer to the first question, I said you gained a good future partner.
Yeah.
And you helped develop. And then I've got 4 out of my 6 direct reports want to be a general manager. And so, in answer to the second question, what tasks do you currently perform? So I'm trying to figure out ways to get all of them the all-around experience, because they're all in individual parts of the company. So I got to figure out ways to get them exposure to all the parts. And one of them, I just took myself off of the board seat and put him in my place to help him.
Good for you.
So, things like that. I'm working on it. To have 4 out of 6 that want your job can be a little discomforting.
You got this. Anyone else?
Which is actually what our board wants, by the way. They want to have
succession plan.
Succession plan. That's what
Absolutely. Succession
So we're
plan.
developing a good succession plan.
Good. I just worked with Tallahassee Police Department the last couple of weeks on succession planning, and I had officers, all officers in the last class, and then a combination of non-sworn and sworn officers, and the one before that. But succession planning is something that many organizations really didn't start thinking about soon enough. And so if you don't have somebody ready sitting on the bench to fill those key positions, then you've got to go outside. And ideally, you would have people internal that are ready to step up.
You at least want some people internal who can, whether or not you choose them, you
Right.
at least want to have the ability. And this is the first organization I've worked at that actually is doing succession planning.
Anyone else in terms of these questions for equipping? Let's move on then. The law of Mount Everest says that as the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork elevates. So the picture taken on the right was in 2010 and released by Team Romero. On the left is 13-year-old Jordan Romero, and he was the youngest climber to reach the top of Mount Everest. Wow. Now, do you think he did it alone?
No.
No.
He was 13.
13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they carry him?
No. I know, right? Because we all know 13-year-olds and be like, yeah, he did it. He did it. All by himself with a team. Yes. So how to grow an effective team. An enthusiastic, this is from the book, The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork, by the way. An enthusiastic beginner needs direction. A disillusioned learner needs coaching. A cautious completer needs support. And a self-reliant achiever needs responsibility. You probably know somebody who fits into each of these categories. So if you give responsibility to a disillusioned learner, that you're probably not going to get the great success you're hoping for. Let's move on to attitude. Everybody take the attitude inventory. Sorry, trying to very daintily move these things.
under severe thunderstorm alert.
Yeah, my neighbor texted me. I'm getting all kinds of text messages.
I'm a news junkie. I'm always on the Rush Report.
Finished?
Thank you.
You're welcome to pick some cherries to go. Nice. Love smiles.
I'm so glad you found your cross, your crucifix.
Thank you.
What a funny story about the kid hiding it in that bag.
I know. I agree. It's pretty amazing. All right. So.
He asked about Barry.
Oh, he was not able to make it today. He has a new supervisor, and he wasn't sure he would be able to make it today.
He told me about it yesterday.
Yeah. So, so talk about adversity. The city just, I guess, lost 50 positions approximately.
47 and 37 people yesterday.
And one was very supervisor. So
He texted me because we were supposed to meet yesterday. And it was pretty.
okay. Well, it's always stressful when you have, that kind of change. So, all right. So let's go to attitude. What questions did you struggle with, or did you do great with all of them?
Number one.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the one bad. The two, I don't evaluate on a regular basis.
You should evaluate yourself in general on a regular basis, just like you would hope that others would evaluate you. I mean, just take a step back and try to look objectively to, what are you accomplishing? Where do you want to be? How are you doing on what you said you wanted to do?
Number 5 is a challenge for me.
Yeah, it was a challenge.
For excessive demands on my time. for demands on my time, and I understand, the ebb and flow when sometimes you go through a crazy period and you have to, but just ongoing excessive demands.
Yeah, I do get to a point where I'm just like,
I'm
enough already. I can only help so even just during the class, my dad's like, are you home? And normally when he says, are you home, there's something wrong. Because the last time he said, are you home, was the day he was diagnosed with cancer. And I tell the story in my classes all the time, are you home? Because normally it would just be, hey, what you doing?
Yeah.
Are you home? I'm like, is everything okay? He just needed my help with some technology, so. And I was like, oh, thank God. What were you saying, Tracy?
I was just going to say I've learned to accept the excessive demands. I didn't used to handle that very well, but I've learned. It's all going to be there tomorrow.
That's great.
And I'm getting there because I'm the type that will stay and burn the midnight oil and dig in and do whatever it takes. But I'm getting to that point. So it'll be there tomorrow.
I encourage my employees to remember that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, people do what people see, and so if a leader has that approach, then they're going to have the same approach. Well, I know you all invest in your own skills improvement and learning.
I didn't now. There was about a 4 or 5 year period when I wasn't doing that. So I'm glad to be
Why?
doing it again.
Why weren't you?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I'm glad I recognize it. That's why, I mean, the sessions we had last year, then going to this, that's gotten me back on track.
Excellent. That makes me feel good. So, yeah, I think when we do neglect those kinds of things, we're sending a really loud message to ourselves that we don't value ourselves as much as we should.
Well, I think I do know the answer why. When I took this job was very overwhelming. And so I think I just let that take over and forgot that I was supposed to be developing myself at the same time. Whereas in the past, I had always been developing.
Good insight.
It would have been very easy for me at my current employer to get a little upset. I missed it by a year. Sure, they paid for his MBA, but they cut out that program. And so I could have been like, man, what about me?
Right.
But so I'm investing in my own self to do this with the Army's help. But still, I and hopefully it's some inspiration to some of the other people in my downline. I got some who started college but didn't finish college, but they said, well, hey, if old man is doing it over there,
I've always found that when you invest in yourself, that others want to invest in you too. And my first big investment in myself was college, and I was poor. I didn't have any money. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And my dad, he's a changed man. At the time, he was not the father I could really count on. He literally told me the day I started college at age 17, by the way, there's really good rates on student loans right now. And I was like, what do you mean? I always thought he was going to pay for college. He always told me he was going to pay for college. And so I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, the rates are really good. I'm like, so you want me to get a loan for myself and pay for my college? And he said, yes. And that was how I learned that I was going to need to invest in myself and pay for college. It was a great investment. It's what I needed. Education was my ticket out of poverty. And so I kept investing, and to the point where the rest of my family's like, why do you need a PhD? I don't know. What's wrong with you? Don't you think you have enough education? And then I invested in myself with Leadership Tallahassee. I was working for Florida State University at the time, and they wouldn't pay. At first they said they would, and then they changed their mind, and I said, you know what, I'm committed to doing this, so I paid out of my pocket. And every time I've invested in myself, regardless of what it is, the John Maxwell certification, anything else, it always pays off. And payoff doesn't necessarily mean financial. There are so many other rewards that come from investing in yourself. And investment doesn't have to be, it can be time. Time is key.
So my kids are getting old enough that they're thinking about college. I've got one that's going to be a senior this year. And my wife and I have debated what portion of college we should pay for over the years. And what we've come down to is we've told them both, we will pay for you to live. You have to pay your tuition and books. Whether that's through scholarships, loans, job, whatever it is. But you've got to pay that portion.
I think it's great. I'll tell you, if I hadn't kind of been forced into that position, I might have not worked. I ended up working 3 jobs to pay my way through school. And the best advice I got was from my major professor at the time was Donna Nudd, who's still a professor at the College of Communication and Information. And she told me, stop working all these jobs that are unrelated to the field you want to be in. I was like, but nobody will hire me because I have no experience. And she said, find a way. And believe it or not, I was very shy at the time, really shy. Really shy and introverted. I mean, really shy. But I had to step up, and I had to make cold calls. And at 17 years old, I was meek. I was, yes, I'm calling because, And finally, I got 2 positions at once out of sheer luck because they didn't talk to each other. WFSU TV and WFSU FM both hired me. One was part of a work study program, so they got funding to hire me because I was poor. And I'll tell you, if I hadn't had that experience, my whole life may have been different. It was a really, really good experience to be working in my field, to have the experience that when other people, they didn't have any experience when they graduated, and I already had 4 years under my belt of full-time plus experience. It enabled me to get opportunities for jobs that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So I think it's a good thing that kids need to work or get scholarships, or ideally a little of both. I do think it's important to work. Even some. I would never want anyone to work as much as I did. I worked an average of 72 hours a week for my full undergraduate.
Wow.
And I carried a full load. And absurdly, in my first semester, I had 21 credit hours in my first semester. Yeah. Talk about overachiever. So I did. I had 21 credit hours, and I was working full time. And I had to get sign-offs from the dean and everything else to allow me to take that many credit hours. But I was driven, and then I drove myself into the ground.
You sound like my boss.
Really?
He's dedicated to get finished right away.
Yeah. Well, and now I encourage people, don't do that. Don't do that. Life is not a race. If you graduate at age 20 like I did, as opposed to 21, doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
My older daughter got a job this past spring. It's been the best thing for her.
Good.
She needed to get a job so bad.
Yeah.
And she doesn't work a lot, but a few afternoons after school during the summer, she's working 2 days a week. She got a job at a lawyer's office, so she doesn't have to do weekends and holidays and nights, which for teenagers is not fun.
Right.
So it works out good, and she's learning the responsibility of working.
And that's something that is so lacking in people that get into the workforce today. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from managers is this generation of employees coming into the workforce doesn't have a strong work ethic. Yeah. They've never really had to have that kind of
part of my concern. A lot of parents are paying for their kids to go to college, and the kids have no responsibility for that at all. So it's
Yeah. All right. So, what about the questions? Describe the attitude of a person whom you consider to be an example of success. How does your attitude differ from this person? What has shaped your attitude toward work, coworkers, family members, friends? And how do you initially react when faced with a challenge? How'd your attitude affect the outcome? Any answers to these questions?
Yeah, I started off with saying the quote I like: "Your attitude determines your aptitude." And the attitude of a person who I consider to be an example of success is one of resilience, positivity, and initiative. So like that strong work ethic, like you were talking about. And I liken myself to her a lot. I can see myself as being resilient and positive and increasing my work ethic. But I don't want to, like you say, overload myself.
Right.
So just having that balance between it all.
Nice. Anyone else?
I referenced a guy named Don Hughes I knew from North Carolina. And I said he was always working hard, always positive, always had good relationships. I don't think I'm always as positive as him. It's hard to be positive like he was all the time. Second question about shaping your attitude toward work. I said my need to accomplish things and see others be successful. And then how do you initially react when faced with a challenge? I always react very determined. I'm determined I'm going to get through any challenge. An example, I used Hurricane Irene, and it kept our team focused on the challenge and getting through it. Because it's so easy in those situations to get sidetracked by all those little things.
Good answers. Yeah.
Ellie Whitney and Mary Penthouse. Ellie Whitney is kind of like the mother of my heart chair. She one of these people that she graduated from Harvard and majoring, double major in English and biology. And before the MedCats, they said, why don't you take the entrance exam for the medical school? And she did. She scored without any studying at all, scored the second highest grade they ever had. And then didn't go to medical school. But she has her PhD, in microbiology and became a professor at FSU in chemistry and nutrition. But she wrote the world's best-selling textbooks on health and nutrition, and they've been translated in more languages, and her company continues. Ellie Whitney was the person who taught me that it doesn't matter what kind of background you have, it doesn't matter who was mean to you or how often, what matters is that you come to work, you put a smile on your face, and you do your job. And she taught me that. It doesn't matter any of those other things, because nobody's particularly interested. Come to work, put a smile on your face, and do your job. Mary Pankowski taught me how to have passion in everything I do. Find the passion in whatever it is you are doing. And of course, you come to work and you put a smile on your face. But now if you have passion about it, find the wonderful thing about it that just makes you feel great. Some teeny-weeny aspect of it. And between the two of them, I really learned how if it's a big, complicated task, you start at figuring out what your goal is, and you work your way backwards, and you set your time frames that way, and they just help bring organization to both my personal and professional life, and that no matter what I do, you come prepared, you put a smile on your face, and you get it done. Those are my two heroes, absolute heroes.
Fantastic heroes. I know one of them. Yeah.
You'd love the other one too.
I'm sure. Thoughts about attitude questions, the attitude questions we have. All right. Yeah. You want to turn the light on? I will. I know. Yeah. It's the. I don't know. It's one of the ones that says conference room. It does. It's like a heater. Yeah.
I'll move back from the table.
So our attitude is a choice.
Yes.
Our attitude determines our approach to life, and our attitude can turn our problems into blessings. The final part of real success is leadership. And we've talked a lot about leadership and what is it. It means a lot of different things to different people, but one is that it's a process of influence that maximizes the efforts of others toward achievement of a goal. Go ahead and answer the leadership inventory. Final inventory. Is this a leadership challenge? The leadership inventory? No, it's just an inventory.
There's a book that was written in Cassie.
No, this is from John Maxwell's Real Success. How to Be a Real Success book.
He has so many wonderful videos on YouTube.
Yeah, he does. You've seen the one I was on with him with Minute with Maxwell, right? Yeah. They're by Taminian. Taminian is the artist. He also did those two pieces on the side, and he did the custom fountain that's over the reception area. He's an internationally known artist who lives in Tallahassee. His name is Taminian, Paul Taminian. Yeah. I never thought I would have this nice of artwork, but when I bought the building, I bought the artwork too. So, yeah. Yeah, I love it.
I just find myself getting lost in it.
Isn't that nice?
Fountain is beautiful out there.
I know, it's cool. I only turn it on when I have like events where it's okay to have a little noise though, because it makes it's a water effect. But that was custom made. All right, we're gonna go ahead and even if you haven't answered all the questions, move forward. So, what do you think about this inventory? Okay, nice.
I rarely challenge the process unless there's something really egregiously out of order. I rarely challenge the process.
So a lot of processes could use improvement.
Yeah, and tweaking, tweaking process I'm fine, but to me the word challenge means reinventing it, really taking it apart. And I rarely do that. I'm rarely in the.
Do you think if you were a CEO of an organization, maybe possibly one that you're currently interested in applying for, you would challenge the process?
Here's the thing. I would wait until I understand
Absolutely.
the process.
Absolutely. That's part of being a great leader.
Of too many
No. Coming in and they want to just change things.
And they change things just to change things.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, the whole point is.
But isn't that learning the process challenging?
Yes.
I mean, to me, that's how you learn, is you see what's going on and you ask
And
why and
understand.
how and why
And
how and why and how over and over again.
Well, and that's I guess I took the word challenge as meaning perhaps dismantling the
Not necessarily.
for me, I want to learn the process. I want to learn the reason why the process, and then we start. Just because we've always done something a certain way doesn't mean we always have to do it that way in the future. But I think you really need to understand what the process is before you start mucking around with it, or you will have unintended consequences, which can be.
When I read challenge, I took it as questioning the process,
Yeah.
not necessarily changing it.
Okay. Questioning the process, certainly.
Okay. What about the questions, the leadership questions? Anyone have answers to any of this?
Just one-on-one time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, all the leadership training and the one-on-one time is not necessarily work, but away from work. About what he's observed, what he's seeing, and just general conversation about what it is to be.
I'm going to use my mentee as an example. I have a fear of heights. I know I'm 6 feet tall, go figure.
And you wear heels.
And I wear heels. And I, through this leadership academy, wanted to face my fears of heights. So I want to go zip lining for my birthday in September. And my mentee said that he would grab his daughters and that he would agree to go zip lining.
Oh my gosh.
One daughter.
One daughter.
One
doesn't.
I'll go with you.
You go with me.
Did I tell you about the coaching client who
No.
okay, so I have
I'll go.
I have
We'll have a field trip.
Leadership Academy field trip. Invite families. I'm serious, okay? Families, friends are welcome. Only good people, okay? No, I actually prescribed the ziplining to a coaching client who was a head of a financial institution, is the head of a financial institution, not yours, and she was struggling with some things, and I said, and one was she said she was afraid of heights, and I said, how would you feel about pushing your fears to the limits? And she said, like what? And I said, You tell me. She goes, well, the last thing I want to do is zip line. I go, okay. How about zip lining? She's like, no. And she did it. She got her, a few of her female, and she was having relationship problems at the time with her longtime husband. And so it was good for her. She got her closest female family members together, and they all zip lined. And she said it was life changing. Like, yeah, it is. But if you're afraid of heights, it's
Not
you
so
know.
much.
But by the end, she conquered her fear.
Yeah,
She said she had no idea that she was going to end up like getting that much positive out of it, and she said it was really, really good therapy.
It really challenges your fear.
It does.
I used to be afraid of heights, and then I went skydiving twice.
Ooh.
I went the first time. It was tandem, and the guy I went with was a former Golden Knight, so I felt pretty comfortable.
Wow.
But the first time we went out, I almost choked and passed out because when the chute deployed, it pulled everything up. So then I was really fearful. So he insisted I had to do it again, and I did.
Nice.
But you know, it's just
That's impressive.
it's like
Who would have ever thought that? Quiet little Tanya.
So I know I'm just short, roundy little nerdy thing, but I've gone whitewater rafting on a Category 4 river, and I've done bungee jumping, and I even held a python. I'm afraid of snakes.
Oh, I love
And
snakes.
I've even held a python. If there's something I'm truly afraid of, I will face it. I will just go and do
That
it.
is an awesome trait to have.
I may not like it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to go skydiving again.
Right.
But if I had to, I could.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Good deal.
There's no way I'm set
I will fly the plane, not jump out of it.
The first time, you literally had to take my hands off the door and go like this and fall out.
The second time in my life I bungee jumped was in South Africa. And it was a really, really high cliff. The first time was in Tallahassee at the fair, and it was 150 feet. And even that was a little traumatic. But the second time was in South Africa. And the guy literally pushed me. He was like, 3, 2. I was like, that's not fair. As I'm dangling by my feet from the canyon. All right.
Yeah, we're gonna do zip lining.
We're gonna do zip lining. Okay.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
We need to do it as a group.
Rappelling is much worse than
I have rappelled
Oh,
in Costa
no.
Rica.
Oh, yeah, it's
It's much
horrible.
worse.
I did it.
No, it
I
isn't.
don't think
No,
I
it
have
isn't.
the strength to.
No. You use your booty. You don't use your hands. Because if I can repel, anyone can repel. You use your legs.
I would do zip lining any day than rappel.
You use your legs and your booty. Okay, so back to the topic of leadership.
I love it.
I have
I
the
do
fear
too.
of it, but if I develop the fear, I'll definitely do it.
In our last 9 minutes together, let's talk about the law of the lid, which basically says that leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So if you think about it, if a person's leadership is strong, then the organization's lid is high. And that's why during times of crisis, organizations tend to look for new leaders. So what is your level of effectiveness? And how could you raise the lid? I'll let you ponder on that question while I move forward. Leaders develop daily, not in a day. That's the law of process, right? So it's not like everyone wants the magic pill. I'm a leader now. There are several phases of growth when it comes to leadership. In phase 1, it's I don't know what I don't know. Very few people at this level really understand even the importance of leadership. Phase 2, I know that I need to know. This is when a little bit of awareness comes about and we discover that we need to learn how to lead. In phase 3, I know what I don't know. And this helps us understand what we need to do to make improvements to get to that next level. Phase 4, I know and grow, and it starts to show. And this is where you start to have more discipline in personal growth areas, and excelling at being a leader starts to happen. And then in phase 5, I simply go because of what I know. The ability to lead almost becomes automatic. You know you need to handle conflict. You just do it. You do what you need to do. And through that comes incredible payoffs. So that's the phases of leadership growth. So what do leaders do? They challenge the process, inspire a shared vision, enable others to act, model the way, and encourage the heart. We talked about success in the very beginning, so I wanted to share The 7 Steps to Success by John Maxwell. Make a commitment to grow daily. Learn something new every day. Value the process more than events. Don't wait for inspiration. Be willing to sacrifice pleasure for opportunity. Dream big. Plan your priorities, and make sure that your daily agenda reflects your priorities. And then give up to go up. You got to let go of certain things in order to get to that next level. Attitude, just ending with an attitude. I constantly talk about words and how impactful they are, but something like I have to go to work today. Exactly, I get to. Even your own language impacts your attitude. And one of the ones that I teach that really has less to do with attitude but words is when people say, let me transfer you, it really annoys the heck out of me. Nobody wants to be transferred. Let me connect you. So I was on the line with Comcast last week. I know. It was awful. I tweeted about it to Comcast, and I said, this is everything I teach not to do with customer service. And they waited like 5 days before they tweeted me back. Any other company is very responsive. By that point, I'm just fed up. They are. They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. So. What's that?
Delta's not far behind.
Oh, I love Delta.
Really?
I do love Delta.
United's far behind.
American and United
My younger
are
child
much worse.
will only fly Delta.
But I joke that Delta stands for doesn't ever leave the airport. But I like them. So, conclusions for today. It's very important for great leaders to handle adversity effectively. You need to work on becoming even more of a real success. You've never actually arrived at that point. And then continue fostering your mentoring and coaching relationships in the Leadership Academy. Any thoughts about your mentoring? Okay. There is an application of concepts. Has anyone filled that out? What action do you commit to doing and by when? Nobody has, so I'm going to ask you to do that before our next class and come back with some. Okay? Come back with, that's your homework, application of concepts. I will. If I can remember. If I can remember. So how are your mentor pairings going? Good?
My mentee in a while, but my mentor is awesome.
Good.
I'm on the phone with mine about once a month, and we chat and get things accomplished.
Great.
Set up the next step. What's the next action step?
Okay.
She's very good at asking, okay? So your action steps are?
Good.
My mentee is amazing. It's been
What's that?
This was right at our last
Oh. She's still gonna be with us. She'll still be with us. Yeah, we're video conferencing, live streaming. Rochester's there right now, so yeah, you can still participate. Any other thoughts? I want you two to stay after and just chat with me for a bit. Okay. So there's your portal. Thank you very much for your time, your attention. And if you think of any other topics, post away, but I'll go back and listen to this tape to refresh my memory. Not tape recording.
Nice session.
Oh, thank you.
Sonia.
Now, September 25th.
Okay, wait, let's say goodbye. Let's say goodbye to Rochester.
Bye, Rochester.
Talk to you soon.